Thank you. Okay, thank you. Right, good afternoon everyone and welcome to the meeting of the Learning and Culture Scrutiny Committee for today, 10th of February. I'm Councillor Gordon Kemp, Chairman of the committee. Can I first remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and that this recording will be archived for future viewing. Could all members please mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback while other participants are speaking? If a member wishes to speak, can they please put their hand up if they can be seen on screen, or use the raise hand function? Could everyone please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of, obviously, of the recording? The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues and or grab the attention of myself or the Democratic Services Officer. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, then they should let myself or the Democratic Service Officer know. If they have a webcam, then they should try turning this off, as this will help with broadband or Wi-Fi bandwidth, so they can at least hear and be heard. I make all these points particularly because we also have present several members of the public who have registered to speak at the meeting in respect of agenda item 4 on the agenda. I would be grateful if the speakers could ensure that cameras are turned off and their microphones are muted until I invite them to address the committee in turn. Following any points of clarification raised by members, they should subsequently turn their cameras back off and remute their microphone until they vacate the meeting. Registered speakers will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to make their representations. Supplementary information in the form of written representations submitted by chairs of governing bodies have been circulated for your consideration and have also been made available on the council's website alongside the agenda. Before I start the meeting by going to the first item, can I welcome some new members of the committee? We have representatives from the from parent governors from the primary sector. We have Lucy Barraclough, who is governor at Llandoch Primary, and from the secondary sector, we have Cathy Williams, who's a governor at Govan Bro Morgannwg. We also have, as a Welsh Medium Education representative, Geraint Scott. I think all three. I think I've seen from the list that all three are present. So, without further ado, we'll go to the agenda. So, part 1, item 1, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies?
Dr. Price from the Roman Catholic Church has provided his apologies.
Thank you. Any other apologies we know of? No, thank you. Right, turning then agenda item 2 to the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of January 2022. Is a member of the committee happy to propose those as a true record?
Move the minutes. Rhiannon, move the minutes.
Thank you very much, Rhiannon. Anyone? And I think
Councillor Norman will second.
You'll second them. Thank you very, very much. Okay, agenda item 3. Are there any declarations of interest?
Can I just put a reminder out there, Chair, because it may have slipped minds that we have LEA governors for some of the schools involved in agenda item 4, possibly. So if anybody does need to make a declaration,
they should do so at this point.
Yes, please.
Councillor Thomas, Neal?
Yeah, just for clarification, I was questioned earlier about whether or not I was governor at Evenlode. I used to be a governor at Evenlode. I am no longer a governor at Evenlode. I came off the governing body as a result of being elected to this council, and because I was a community governor, and I couldn't be a community governor and a member of the council. But Ben Gray and Catherine McCaffer are the council, the Vale of Glamorgan representatives of the governors. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I see we've also got Joanna Bryan with her hand up. Obviously, I think you're here as one of the public speakers, aren't you?
I am, yes, but I'm also a governor at the local authority governor at 2 schools that aren't actually involved in these proposals. I just thought I'd mention it in case it was necessary. Okay,
thank you very much.
I'm just looking at a list here. I just want to double check. Councillor Birch, are you an LEA governor at Cogan Primary?
Apologies, I was, but I haven't been for the last 5 years.
Thank you very much for clarifying. Better
I
to be
wouldn't come
sure.
forward otherwise.
I think we're appointing people to governorships that they're not actually schools. They're
I
not
want to cover all bases. I do apologise. Thank you very much.
Don't worry about that. It does make me wonder if the records are up to date, though.
We can discuss that later, but thank you. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, I've got Councillor George Carroll, indicating he wants to speak. If it's just to introduce or to lead into the next item, George, I'll be calling you soon. Or is there anything else you want to add at this point?
I don't think it's necessary, but just for the avoidance of doubt, I am an LEA governor, but not for one of the schools under consideration.
Okay, well, on that basis, I'll say I'm an LEA governor, but not at neither of the schools that are the subject of this matters this afternoon. So I don't know whether Councillor Parker wishes to make the same point.
No, you've clarified what I was going to ask. Many thanks.
Okay, then. Neal, you've still got your hand up. Is that...
No, sorry, legacy. Apologies.
A legacy hand. Okay, thank you very much. Right, then we're moving on then to agenda item 4, which is a call-in from the Cabinet of the 10th of January, which was entitled Update on the Consultation on the Proposals to Amalgamate Bute Cottage Nursery with Evenlow Primary and Cogan Nursery with Cogan Primary. Councillor Carroll has called this in. Councillor Carroll, George, I'll hand over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. And firstly, may I begin by thanking you for granting my call-in request on this item this evening. Members will be aware that this is a matter of specific public interest. There is a lot of interest, as demonstrated by the number of members of the public who have registered to speak on this item. I just wanted to provide a bit of background to the committee as to why I have called this item in this evening. The proposals to merge Bute Cottage Nursery with Evenlow Primary School and Cogan Nursery with Cogan Primary School were subject of a consultation that was held last year. It was then put to Cabinet, that consultation, who then took a decision on whether to proceed with the proposals as set out in that consultation. In the instance of Bute Cottage Nursery, in particular, Chair, a considerable number of responses were received. I have the figures in front of me. 238 individual responses were submitted on that. 48 of those responses were in support of the proposals, 169 were opposed, and 21 offered no opinion either way. That is a clear and significant majority of consultees who engaged with the process who were opposed to that proposal. In the instance of Cogan Nursery School, 238 responses were received on that, 47 were in support, 73 were opposed, and 118 offered no opinion either way. So again, of those who expressed a view, a majority were against those proposals, but I will accept that the level of interest was not as high as that as in relation to Bute Cottage. The concerns I have, Chair, relate to the fact that there was clearly a lot of interest in this matter, and a number of people, far higher than we would expect with a typical consultation held by the authority, expressed a view that they did not support the proposals. The Cabinet on the 10th of January agreed to proceed with those proposals. I therefore believe that, inconsiderate that insufficient consideration was made regarding those consultation responses, and that is the reason I have called this matter in before the committee this evening. I would therefore urge the committee to consider requesting that the Cabinet reconsider its decision on this matter and, in effect, maintain the status quo. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Carroll. In response to that, we now turn to the Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration, Councillor Burnett. If you'd like to make comments on this.
Thank you, Chair. I would, and I would also appreciate an opportunity to come back in later if there are any specific concerns raised by either speakers or by the committee. What I would say is I'm really disappointed. I'm really disappointed at the grounds for this calling. To say that Cabinet didn't give due consideration, I find of great concern. When we actually looked, I mean, I've gone back through all the various webcasts of the meetings. I mean, it first went to Cabinet on the 13th of September last year, and if you watch the webcast, the Cabinet report took 10 minutes as an introduction to a consultation. So it wasn't even that going through all the various aspects of the consultation, and there were specific points covered in that report, which I will bring up shortly. I don't know if somebody's got their microphone on. It's rather noisy. I think Councillor Charles might. Yes, that's gone off. Then it went to scrutiny on the 14th of October, and a number of councillors raised points there. And there was discussion for approximately 18 minutes. There were no major points raised. There were comments that it's a very straightforward matter. It's obviously got unanimous support. I'm not aware of any of Councillor Carroll's group actually speaking during that, but I could be mistaken. And then we came to the second Cabinet discussion of it. And that's where I actually apologise to my colleagues for the length of time I was going to take, and the coverage of that report, including detailed discussion by other Cabinet members, was 45 minutes, which, as a previous Cabinet member, you would be aware is often longer than an entire Cabinet meeting has historically taken. 45 minutes on that. On that topic. During the consultation, I attended governing body meetings with both of the nurseries. I also, just outside the consultation period, but before the second Cabinet meeting, I attended Bute Cottage. Unfortunately, due to issues of social distancing, I wasn't able to witness teaching and learning, but I was able to visit the nursery school. And I think that, as if, for anybody that watched that 45-minute Cabinet meeting, they would have seen us discussing the level of misinformation that that was apparent within the consultation responses. That if you look at the number that specifically mention a move of Bute Cottage to the even load site as a reason for their objection, then you're talking approximately half of the objections. And then if you start to go through it, where that is one of the factors amongst others, it's even more. And I think that any councillors present here would understand that a consultation, a statutory consultation, particularly an statutory education consultation, is not a referendum. It's where we listen to views to see whether or not, or whether there is any reason why the agreed policy of 3 to 11 education that has been adopted by this council for the last 10 years or so should not be applied. And in that first meeting and in every subsequent meeting, it has been stated that those nursery schools would only be merged at a governance and leadership level, and that there would be no change to where they were operating. And if you actually look at the consultation document, the first question, actually, at the end of the question, it says about, do you support the proposal to amalgamate, and it's whatever nursery it is, because it's proposal 1 and proposal 2. And within that question, it says, please note, nursery provision would continue to be provided from the existing building. Now, as councillors, we have to balance, obviously, what we feel is the best course of action, but sometimes it's through a minefield of misinformation. Actually, one website that you know, around the petition that was launched initially contained wrong information. So it's been very difficult to find that. And I have poured, I actually have the consultation responses on my computer at the moment, and I can quote to you some of those responses. So I am disappointed that I am disappointed that Councillor Carroll didn't, you know, obviously hasn't listened to the 45-minute cabinet report where we went through it all. And I hope that today, with further discussion, that we actually can reassure people who have contributed to that consultation that those nursery schools are not moving. Those, you know, I can go into the whole feasibility thing afterwards, but what I will say is that those nursery schools, if they merge, you know, if it goes through forward, because actually, again, it was incorrect saying taking this proposal forward. It's going to go to statutory notice yet, but taking this proposal forward, that nursery school would still be opening on the Butte Cottage site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Cabinet Member. Yeah, I can say from my time as a Cabinet Member involved in the, I'll call it, well, I'll use the word debate regarding Llancarvan Primary School. I'm well aware of how that Cabinet meeting was structured and how it proceeded. But I welcome your assurances that there is no intention to move the two schools off their existing sites. I hope that, bearing in mind what I've also heard in the past regarding intentions regarding Llancarvan Primary School, perhaps, you know, I might be a little cynical about that.
Actually, Chair, I do think that I need to come back on.
You've had your opportunity of speaking.
You cannot make an allegation against me like that. You cannot make a sarcastic comment. I always said that if I had been the Cabinet Member, I would not have taken that proposal forward. But we've just talked about policy. We've just talked about processes. There was no reason to overturn the decision of the Cabinet that you were a member of. So please retract that. That is completely unfounded.
I will not retract that, Cabinet Member. I will now move on and give officers an opportunity to comment on if they have anything they wish to add at this point. Officers? Councillor Parker will have his opportunity of speaking later in the debate. Officers, do you have anything you wish to add?
Given the nature of the call and in relation to the Cabinet's decision, there's nothing further to add from officers.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move to the speakers, and as I said earlier, we will allow each speaker 3 minutes. I'll keep an eye on that, but I'm sure the Cabinet Officer Catherine will come in if she feels it necessary to say that members of the public are going over the time they've allocated to them. So
Chair, if you would like, I'll put a 1 minute to go notification in the chair, just to, in the chat, just so that people are aware that they're counting down.
That would be very helpful. Thank you very much. So I'll now invite members to speak. As I've said before, would all speakers turn on their microphones and cameras when I invite them to speak? I ask them to state their name and the capacity in which they are speaking before they begin. And once they then begin speaking, that's when the 3 minutes will start. So I've got firstly Mr. Disley.
Thank you, Chair. Richard Disley, I'm Chair of Governors at Bute Cottage. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the Governors of Bute Cottage Nursery School. It has been difficult to get our voices heard during this process. Although we provided a detailed response to the consultation, in our opinion, many of the points raised were not answered by either the consultation response report or the discussion by Cabinet. We were not told the matter would be put before Scrutiny Committee in October last year, and we were not informed we could register to speak at that meeting. We've had to chase 21st Century Schools for information on delays to the process. It is only through conversations with various councillors that we've discovered we could speak today. Our concern through the whole process has been on the well-being of our staff, who are specialists with extensive experience in the area they've chosen to work, nursery education. If amalgamation is allowed to proceed, the current positions of the majority of nursery staff are only guaranteed for 12 months. Long-serving permanent staff members that in our current budget have job stability will now only have guaranteed work for 12 months. Staff haven't been offered any support from the local authority through this very stressful time. One of the fundamental points that we feel hasn't been discussed in enough detail is the fact that the current governance and leadership team has provided an ideal structure to support the implementation of progressive, in-the-moment planning and teaching. It sets the standard for early years education in line with the new curriculum for Wales. Without funding being protected for 3 and 4-year-olds, a supportive governing body and a nimble and agile management structure that is currently in place, it's doubtful this could have been implemented so quickly and effectively. Despite any good intentions of a primary school, this would be much more difficult to undertake in that environment. Primary education has and should have a greater focus on traditional teaching methods based on classroom learning. This is not the case with a specialist standalone nursery, where learning through play is much more important. They're different settings with different objectives, and therefore should have different leadership, management and governance structures. Evidence of how well Bute is doing on this front can be found in the fact that many of the schools and nurseries have sent staff to Bute for training in these new teaching methods, and Bute should be held up as an example of how things should be done, not merged into a primary school for the sole purpose of fitting into a 3 to 11-year-old model, for which there is no proof of improved outcomes for children. We've asked for evidence on a number of occasions, but none has been forthcoming. In their response to the consultation document, Estin note, and I quote, "The proposer has not considered the risks and disadvantages associated with the loss of a dedicated head teacher whose focus is providing effective early years education, and the impact this may have on the quality of education provision. Surely if this proposal is about better outcomes for our children rather than a cost-saving exercise, this should have been the first issue raised by the proposer. Yet not only was it not included in the proposal document, it wasn't discussed by Cabinet either. On the issue of cost savings, another concern that hasn't been addressed is how an amalgamation would adversely affect the funding that should be focused on 3 and 4-year-olds. There's plenty of research to suggest the earlier that investment is made, the better the educational outcomes of the child in the long term.
I'm sorry, that's 1 minute. That's 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry, you've obviously gone a little bit over your time, but we have to be very strict on this to limit it. What we have the opportunity now, or members of the committee have, and I can see Councillor Thomas has his hand raised, is that we can ask points of clarification from what you have said.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Disley, you referred to the Bute Cottage Nursery as being a sector leader. It is a very good nursery school. I agree. However, what was the report? The grading that you got from the last Estin report? I believe it was good rather than excellent. Is that correct?
The last Estin report was a long time ago, 6 years ago. And it was good, yes.
Yeah.
A lot has changed in that time, that 6 years.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much, Mr. Disley, for your contribution. If you could now turn your camera and microphone off, and obviously you can listen to the rest of the meeting, but obviously not participate in it. The second speaker I have is a Ms. Canavan. Is she present?
She was earlier. There she is.
Yes. Here we are. Yes.
Oh, I don't know what's happening with my camera.
Here.
Sorry.
Here we go.
Sorry, I'm having trouble getting my camera. Oh, there it is. There we go. So, oh gosh, right, okay.
Right, okay. Well, the same as before. If you state your name and the role in and the capacity in which you are speaking, and then once you start to speak, the 3 minutes will start. And I apologise in advance if you are cut short, but we have to stick very strictly to the time limit. So over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name's Mairead Canavan, and I'm speaking for the National Education Union. Thank you for this opportunity to point out the reservations which the NEU have about this consultation on behalf of our members working at Cogan Nursery School. The most recent Eston inspection rated Cogan Nursery School as excellent in all categories, and there's concern that the expertise of staff with high quality early years education will be diluted as part of the amalgamation process, resulting in the excellent nursery service not being retained in the same way. The consultation document indicates that the nursery will continue with the same staffing levels and at its current location for the foreseeable future. It will be situated some 0.2 miles from the primary school and at a separate site. However, there's no indication that a senior manager will be based on site. We contend that this may have a detrimental effect on the day-to-day management and oversight of the nursery. Raise concerns about the ability to lead and safeguard nursery staff and dilute effective communication between the nursery and the primary school. We also have concerns that there's no firm requirement for Cogan Primary School governing body to integrate some of the governors from Cogan Nursery School. We believe that without such a commitment, those governors who have knowledge and experience of Cogan Nursery School could be lost. We contend that without a nursery voice on the governing body of the primary school, this could have a detrimental effect on how the nursery is run in future years. While we note that the amalgamation is likely to take place without compulsory redundancies at this stage, the future is uncertain, and we contend that specialist early years staff may be at high risk of redundancy in the future. Our members have informed us that this scenario has already played out at Cadoxton. Concerns have been expressed by our members that the invaluable community work in which they've been proactive will be lost due to the change in governance of the nursery. They believe there's a danger that this work will not be seen as a priority within the larger school setting. Our members are very much against this amalgamation for reasons which they have themselves outlined in their responses. And as Councillor Carroll commented, there was a large majority of public responses against the proposal. Our members at Cogan Nursery also feel that their voices haven't really been heard, and they strongly maintain that specialist nursery provision is best for children pedagogically. And again, they agree with Councillor Carroll that the council should maintain the status quo. Thank you for your attention, and again for allowing the submission.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for your timings. Is there any member of the committee that wishes to raise any points for clarification? I can see one hand raised.
Councillor Rowlands.
Councillor Rowlands.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. I did miss what the lady is speaking on behalf. It cut out slightly, so I just wanted to know.
The National Education.
Okay, yeah, brilliant. I got that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? No? Okay, well, again, thank you for your contribution. Most appreciated. And as I say, if you now mute and turn your camera off, we'll move on to the next speaker. Next speaker I've got is Mrs. If I can read what I've got here, Mrs. Gillies. You apologise if I got that pronunciation wrong, but are you present?
Hello there. Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me? All okay?
We can, yes. So again, same as before. If you state your name and the capacity in which you're speaking, and then you will have 3 minutes to start to comments.
Can I just clarify that we can't see you, Mrs. Gillies? I don't know whether you want to be on camera.
Oh, sorry, my camera. I can see me.
I can.
Oh, I can't. Okay, that's my problem. Sorry.
I can't either.
Oh, I can see me at the bottom of the screen. Sorry.
No,
I'm
I
here
can't
somewhere.
either.
Let me just. I'll try again and just. Here we go. Let's try one more time. Is that better? Any luck?
For me, yes.
Yes.
There we go. Okay. So I'm Steph Gillies. I'm speaking for Bute, and I'm a parent and also a foundation phase teacher in Cardiff. I've had the privilege of experiencing Bute both as a parent and of 2 children and as a foundation phase practitioner in a Cardiff school. I've been absolutely bowled over time and time again by the outstanding provision and nurturing environment that Bute has offered both my children. Well-being is at the heart of everything Bute does, and I know my children are the healthy, confident, ethically informed individuals they are because of the foundations they've had at Bute Cottage. The new curriculum for Wales states that high quality early education provision is essential for children's development. And high quality education needs highly skilled practitioners who are experts in the age phase they teach. As a standalone nursery, Bute Cottage have been able to train their staff in a range of expertise that a whole community of children have benefited from for many, many years. With my teacher hat on, I can't help but think how we should harness these skills and expertise and offer training in exceptional early years provisional across the teaching profession. This is something as part of a larger school I've personally seen disappear as funding for specific age phases, like nursery, gets dissolved across other areas and needs of the school. There is such potential to showcase the exceptional high quality provision that Bute offers, not only in the form of their highly qualified staff, but also the superb outbuildings that are already well established and could offer such valuable professional learning opportunities. The possibilities are endless, and with the right support in place, this could actually make vital financial contributions to support the school, which is surely worth considering. Bute Cottage is an up and running early years setting, and it could offer training where not only theory could be shared, but theory in practice, which as a teacher is much of a far more valuable experience. You know, training could be £130 a head up to £220 a head per person, and through delivering or buying in trainers, Bute Cottage will be able to generate an income alongside its annual budget. My school personally has formed strong links with Bute Cottage, and over the years we've spent a number of foundation phase staff to observe the different practices in their early year settings. Post-visit, our teachers have returned enthused and transformed in their approach to early years education. Bute is special. They've made significant changes in their own classrooms from just one visit. Our nursery in particular has been completely transformed and now mirrors much of Bute Cottage after seeing the positive impact it has on learners. This is first-hand experience from one school in Cardiff. So, you know, imagine the possibility and the potential that Bute could have to develop skills across an endless network of schools given the chance. This would only happen if governance and budget control remained within Bute. Children now identified with additional learning needs continue to rise across schools. Early intervention can obviously avoid the need for already very stretched outside agencies such as speech and language therapists, OTs, to step in at a later date. Bute has created a culture of inclusion and equity in which children with ALN thrive. Again, because of this.
3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Again, thank you very much. Any member of the committee have any points for clarification? Can't see any hands raised. So, okay then. Well, thank you very much for that contribution. And again, if you can turn your camera off and mute. Thank you very much. The next speaker I have is Mrs. Rees, Kate Rees.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yep, well, I can. Hopefully everyone else can. So again, if you state your name and the capacity in which you're speaking, and then you have 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name's Kate Rees. I am speaking as a parent from within the community that is affected by these proposals. I have also previously been a governor on the Butte Cottage governing body, although I'm not at the moment, I'm no longer doing that. I really wanted to speak today to represent all of the families and parents who spoke out in opposition to these proposals and who I really feel weren't duly listened to. So I have watched the replay of the Cabinet meeting and frankly found it really, well, disappointing, at best, angering even, to say that that was the response to all of the comments that were sent in. It was very disappointing that there wasn't more consideration given of the issues that were truly raised. I actually think Councillor Burnett, in saying that people were talking about location, actually diverted from the issues which I know really are the ones that we're talking about, and really what matters is that the fact that Butte Cottage has its own head teacher, that it has its own budget, it has its own governing body, it has its own specialist staff. Those are the really magic ingredients that come together to create the exceptional setting for education that our 3 to 4 year olds get to experience. I have 3 children. All 3 of them were lucky enough to go to Butte Cottage. They all attend Evenlode now. And Butte Cottage was just a really wonderful experience for them all. I stayed home with all of my children when they were very little. I took them to Butte Cottage every day. I picked them up every day. I got to know that nursery really, really well, the setting and the staff. And because of that, I'm absolutely passionate about the provision there. And for Councillor Burnett to suggest that it won't change when the nursery would lose its leadership, it would lose its governance, it would lose its independence and autonomy, it would lose its dedicated budget. It may in time lose some of those incredibly specialist staff that they have, which make the learning experience just so special for our children, is incredibly misleading. And that's what we really want this discussion to be about, understanding the impact of making those changes. That's what will make a difference. And seeing 2 of the council members being governing members of the governing body at Evenlode, surely that would be a conflict of interest. I can't understand how in such a small decision-making group, 2 people with a strong association to Evenlode would be allowed to vote and to influence other Cabinet members. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Does any member of the committee want to raise any points of clarification? I think Councillor, yes, Neal Thomas. Neal?
Yes, sorry, Mrs. Rees, you talk about the head teacher and so on at Butte Cottage, and as I said earlier, I agree that it's a brilliantly run school, but the head teacher at the moment is an acting head. It isn't the same head as was there, and so the management and so on within the school, even if there were no change in the governorship, which is what we're talking about, that is inevitably going to change anyway.
So the acting head teacher acts like a head. So the leadership that Mrs. Gould has provided is equivalent to a head teacher. I'm sorry, I don't know if I really understand the question. Mrs. Gould has acted as if she is the head teacher in the leadership that she has provided, in the standards that she's provided, in the
absolutely. But the fact is, yeah, it's the actual role. The role that she has is an acting head teacher. It isn't a permanent post as head teacher. That would need to be ratified or whatever by an appointments panel or so on.
Yes, as I understand it, the nursery were never allowed to appoint Mrs. Gould as a permanent head teacher, even though I believe that was what was advocated. And And, you know, as a member of the public, I don't really understand then where this saving's coming from, because we haven't, Butte Cottage doesn't actually have a head teacher. But maybe I'm missing a point or something.
I don't think so.
I think you've made the point that you wish to make. The
Sorry,
point that I'm trying to make is
thank you. If I can, okay, cool. Thanks for that. I've got Councillor Rowlands with his hand raised.
Yeah, it was just to make a point that Councillor Thomas's point of clarification wasn't a point of clarification. I felt it was more interrogating the speaker.
Well, you may be right on that, but I think the speaker managed to deal with it very well, in my view. So I don't think any harm has been done. So I don't think that was necessarily Councillor Thomas's intention. Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. If no one else wishes to raise a point of clarification, if we can move on to Mrs. Bryan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you see me, hear me?
I can certainly see and hear you. I imagine if I can, probably everybody else can.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you very much, first of all, for the opportunity to contribute. I'm an ex-teacher, an ex-head teacher with a wealth of experience in secondary, primary, nursery classes and nursery schools. So I'm talking as an interested parent and practitioner, basically. All right, so I'd like to discuss and clarify the point raised by Espen in the proposal and responses so far, that the authority hasn't considered the risks and disadvantages associated with the loss of a dedicated head teacher whose focus is providing effective early years education and the impact this may have on the quality of education provision. And it's on these grounds that I'd urge the committee to refer these proposals back to Cabinet or the Council and recommend that they be withdrawn. Managers and officers from the authority will argue that as all staff and all sites will be remaining the same, there will be no difference in the quality of educational provision. I beg to differ due to my experience and subsequently will present some alternative views based on my personal experience and knowledge. It takes some years to build a good school. It takes even more to build an outstanding one. It takes successive, committed, skilled teachers and staff with supportive governance and a shared belief that the needs of the child, each and every one of them, will be the fundamental driving force behind every decision. In a school where a dedicated head teacher has successfully established a can-do, children-first ethos, the parents and inspectors can be confident that if Johnny needs more outdoor time, sometimes spontaneously to help him shake off his anger or anxieties from home, staff will make sure he gets it now, today. If every day Simone needs an extra crutch or two and her favourite toy as she says goodbye to her carers so that she can feel more happy and ready to learn, staff will make sure she will get it now, today. If Morgan needs a personal helping hand occasionally to help move from one activity to another and regulate behaviour, staff will make sure it is there, now, today. These are the kind of decisions that a dedicated head teacher can safely attest their staff will feel trusted and empowered to make, without the delay of time-consuming discussions with SLT regarding resource allocation and its implications to the rest of the school. It's clear from the number of responses that disagree with these proposals which setting most parents would prefer to send their children to. This is what happens in a school where children are properly seen, where staff have the time and resources to find out about the individual challenges, triggers and desires of each child, where staff can support young children using the wealth of skills and strategies they've been trained in, where each member of staff can respond immediately, in the moment, to support each child in their learning, development and life skills. This is what happens when a school can dedicate 100% of its resources to the specific and unique needs of a 3 or 4 year old child and their family. A school that's delivering on its core mission, to be there for every child and to give them what support or encouragement they need to grow and develop. No dilution of resources or time because of a disruptive event in year 5, pulling away more adults to help contain. No teacher withdrawing from teaching time, plugging the class into a feature-length movie so that they can complete management tasks. No whole school.
I'm sorry, that's 3 minutes.
Sorry, thank you.
Again, thank you very much for that contribution. Again, any member of the committee wish to raise a point of clarification? No. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that contribution.
Okay.
And if you want to mute and turn off your camera, that would be appreciated. So I have one final speaker in my list, and that's Mrs. Helen Jones.
Hello, Chair.
Hello. And we can see and we can hear you, so there's no problem there.
Sorry, before I start, Chair, am I allowed as a guest to raise a point of clarification?
Well, I'm
outside my 3 minutes.
Well, the point of clarification is for members of the committee to actually ask people who speak, to ask the guests to clarify what they've said. So it's not for you to raise an issue. If you want to raise something in your 3 minutes, I have no problem with that at all.
Okay. In that case, hello, I'm Helen Jones. I'm a parent and a parent governor at Bute Cottage Primary School. My quick point of clarification, not part of what I was going to say, was that on the site issue talked about earlier with Councillor Liz Burnett, the consultation report actually specifically states that no statutory consultation would be required to move the school site. I'll leave that there for you councillors to discuss later. What I wanted to say. Professional development. The consultation report specifically says that staff would benefit from greater professional development with the amalgamation. That was based on one person's feedback in Cadoxton. I've got 7 staff at Bute Cottage who are demonstrating what great professional development looks like in the practice they deliver and teach. They are a family of experts in early years and they choose to work in that area. It is not a penance. But don't take my word for it. Look at the accolades that they have achieved. Action research projects, delivering the latest in teaching methods for young children. Speech and language sessions to make sure no learning is lost. Forest school, beach school, making the most of those settings. Welsh language secondments, which have resulted in getting Siarter Iaith, the Welsh Development Awards at bronze level. Very unique in nursery settings. The Silver UN Award for Rights for a Child, showing that children are at the heart of what they do. 8 years in a row getting the Eco Platinum flag for building buildings out of mud, for creating community gardens, wildlife ponds. That is what great professional development gets you. It gets you award-winning schools and centres of excellence. These are staff-led initiatives that help themselves, the children and the school priorities. But not only do they teach the children, they teach the parents too. I've been on it. The best education young children get starts at home. So the school teach the parents how to play, and it's brilliant. This only happens if you have control of your budget and if you have control of the governance. This is a centre of excellence, and that's what this investment has developed. But don't take my word for it. The external independent school improvements partner has written to the Vale and to other schools in the consortium to tell them about the innovative practice that is happening in Bute Cottage. The Central South Consortium Early Years Advisor has been to see all of the learning that's happening, and that's resulted in them taking part in further action research projects, getting schools in to visit to see best practice in action. Bute Cottage is forward-thinking, creative, innovative. It's a school that should be celebrated, not amalgamated. An amalgamation based on a model by your own hand saying 10 years old, how can this be fit for the new curriculum for Wales? It's based on a decision that isn't best for 3 to 4 year olds, just a model that used to be applied well. And it proposes a 70,000.
Sorry.
Sorry?
That was 3 minutes, sorry.
I think you said you've done your 3 minutes. You probably sidetracked yourself a little bit at the beginning by a point of clarification.
I did, but I felt I need to say, I'm sorry, Chair.
That's okay, no problem.
Do the full 3 minutes after that question, just to clarify.
Oh, well, there we are. We are fair there then.
Yes.
So does any member of the committee have any points of clarification they wish to raise with Helen Jones? No? Okay. Well, can I thank you and also all the other speakers that have contributed today. I think we've had very helpful comments from members of the public, and that's been most appreciated, and it's good to see the interest that people have in this topic. Catherine, there are no other speakers there. There are certainly no other ones on my list, and none that have snuck in without me knowing.
No, Chair, those are all the registered speakers that have turned up, yes.
Well, I appreciate that. I think they had to register by yesterday, didn't they, anyway, to speak, so it'd be surprising if anyone could sneak in without us knowing. Okay, well, as again, thank you to everyone that's contributed to that. I'm not sure whether the next sort of category, as it were, who are entitled to make any comments before we come to members of the committee, are any other councillors who are present at this meeting who might wish to make a comment or raise a point. Obviously, Councillor Carroll is not a member of the committee, but he's already obviously spoken by introducing it. Is there any other member of the council out there, not a member of the committee, who wishes to speak? No. Okay, thank you very much. Well, I will now open it to debate to members of the committee. So, Councillor Rowlands, I think, were you the first? Let me just check on my list.
Councillor Rowlands was first.
I've got, just in order, I've got Councillor Rowlands, Councillor Birch, Councillor Perks and Councillor Thomas. So, Leighton, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a few points in relation to Councillor Burnett's comment when this came to Scrutiny Committee the first time. I think we were, and she could clarify this for me, I think we were just purely talking about going out to consultation. So at that particular point, I felt I didn't have a view, and I wanted to know what the public and the parents and the governor's view before I made make a decision. On a second note, a comment in relation to that anyone who didn't agree with it didn't watch the meeting. It was a bit patronising and sort of we know best attitude, and that was another point I want to raise. But more to do with the consultation. One concern. Theme 2 of the consultation responses, it says that it's not about addressing the educational standards, as we heard. Bute Cottage Essence report is pretty good. So it's not about addressing the educational standards. The next theme goes on to go about in relation to what is the motive? Is it about cost cutting exercises? Again, they say it's not about cost-cutting exercise, though they do make a comment about saving £140,000, and that's one aspect of that. So if it's not cost-cutting exercise, what's the purpose of the proposal? On the second note, and I know it's nothing to, it's not about the land, but I think it does have to sort of play into it. And I think one speaker did say that it's about the council will consider the need to redevelop Evenlow Primary School to include a nursery provision on the single site as part of the future programmes proposal. And a part of any scheme, a council will take a full feasibility assessment. So if it's not about moving the site, why do a feasibility or even mention a feasibility assessment? So I'm struggling to understand why the cabinet are deciding to go down this route. The fact we've got some of the speakers there, we've got a trade union person speaking against it. We've also got the fact that ex-teachers, who are experts in their fields. I'm not a teacher, though it wasn't long ago I did go to school. Most people may see that, but I'm just finding it confusing in why is this being proposed. But I'd like to hear what other members would like to say first before I make any proposals or vote on anything. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Leighton. The Vice Chairman is the next on the list, Rhiannon.
Thank you. I'd like to start by saying that I find it disappointing that so many of the speakers are talking about how standards will change and how the ethos of these schools will change. They will have the same staff, there will be the same guiding ethos in place, there will be the same standards of professionalism in place. Even if they were talking about amalgamating boards of governors, those two schools, both the primaries and the two nursery schools, have a vested interest in maintaining standards. To hear some of these speakers, you would think the children are going to be put in a field to poke each other with sticks rather than having an education. I think it's very disappointing, their lack of trust in the teaching professionals, who will continue to maintain high standards, continue to provide pastoral care, education, all the different aspects of nursery education that are there. It seems to me incredible that all of this, they believe, will be going out of the window simply because we're talking about a governing body. Lots of schools in England, for example, are now 3 to 18 schools, and it provides children with a continuity and an overarching pursuit of excellence, that the children are they go in at 3, they come out at 18, and they go through the same ethos and the same system. I cannot see why that is under threat, because we're simply talking about amalgamating a board of governors. Should these proposals come to fruition, then obviously governors would be expected to take on particular responsibilities for particular areas, as governors do now. They take on responsibilities for specific areas of the curriculum. I myself, as a governor, have been responsible for English and Welsh in the primary school that I'm a governor of for several years, through more than one inspection. And I've been expected to undergo training and demonstrate capacity and knowledge of the curriculum in that point. And obviously we would be expecting the governors in these possible amalgamated governing bodies to do exactly the same thing. We're not going to be throwing people in at the deep end with no training and no knowledge. I think it's disappointing that anybody believes that the authority would let that happen. Obviously standards would be maintained. We have the same teaching staff in place. They will be going through the same inspection regime. They will be adhering to the same curriculums as they were last year, as they will be next. I mean, obviously there's been a new introduction of the early years curriculum and so forth, but they will be doing the same teaching. They're not going to throw it all out of the window simply because of a change in governing body. I think it's disappointing that people are reacting in this way to a change which has many positives to it. And I think a little bit of scaremongering going on here. Somebody talked about professional development. I cannot see why that would not continue. If we want our teaching to be of particular standards, then that professional development will still take place. I don't see that you need to have possibly a specific head teacher in place. You would always employ somebody to be in charge who would have those same standards at heart. They would obviously be interested in the teachers' continued professional development because it improves teaching and learning. I could go on, but as my last point would be that I taught for nearly 30 years on a 2-site school, where the head was on one site and there was a deputy head on the other site. And the head would visit, the deputy head would go across to the other site, and there would be an exchange of views, etc. The discipline was maintained. This idea that discipline and support of staff and support of disciplinary standards is going to go to hell in a handcart simply because the head is not on the premises at a particular time. Would that mean that the head could never leave the school in case something was let slip during his or her absence? I think that this is an overreaction. And we can have a perfectly effective 2-site school, and it happens in many places simply because of geography. So I'm concerned that the responses that people have offered are not taking into account the complete professionalism of teaching staff and the education department in overseeing what those schools are doing, what those schools will continue to do, what they will continue to provide and offer to children and parents. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Obviously, it's appreciated your knowledge in this respect, and but obviously we have to we'll of course bear in mind the views that have been made by people perhaps with knowledge themselves who have spoken. Right, next I've got, oh, I see already popped up there ready to speak. Sandra?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I just wondered if I could ask the officers a couple of questions, if that's okay, just for a bit of clarification here. I just wondered if they could tell us how many standalone nurseries there are in the Vale, but also how many nurseries that are amalgamated with primary schools. I can say my second point, if that's okay. Do we know, have any data or any knowledge around how well children perform in nurseries that are within primary schools in comparison to standalone nurseries? Is there any difference there? Or are we seeing, you know, depending on the child's ability, development and stuff like that, how far they progress? You know, they still have the same nursery facilities as you would expect in a whatever sort of form the nursery takes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I can see Morwen's ready to answer your questions.
Thanks, Chair. Good evening. We have 2 standalone nurseries remaining in the Vale. This is the 2 that are being discussed now. I don't know about all other local authorities, but I know that Cardiff, which, as you'll be aware, is a much larger local authority than us, they have 3. So there aren't many local authorities with standalone nurseries anymore. In response to the second part of your question, I don't have the data to hand, but I did actually comment on this when it was previously discussed at Scrutiny. And at the time of Cadoxton Nursery and Cadoxton Primary School amalgamating, which was the last amalgamation that we did between primary and nursery, I did at the last Scrutiny Committee share the data both before amalgamation and after amalgamation. And going back to a point that Ms. Kavanagh made earlier, the decision for staff to move from the nursery to the primary, which I think is relevant as well, that was actually at the request of many of the staff members from the nursery for their own professional development opportunities. What was interesting as part of that is that that did impact on standards, because it impacted on standards not just from within the nursery setting, but also those same children when they went through to the end of foundation phase at the end of year 2, and teachers were and support staff as well were able to see the progression and not seeing nursery as the end point of their education, but part of the starting journey of that learning continuum. So I don't have that data to hand, I'm afraid, but I do know that standards did improve for the children as they then amalgamated into the primary school.
Oh, thank you for that. I do remember you talking about that now that you said it at the previous scrutiny meeting. Sort of on a personal note, my son went to High Street School. There's an amalgamated nursery there. Very good education. My son went on to university. He's now doing his master's. It does work. That was a really good stepping stone. He actually, I'm sure he won't mind me saying, he does have additional learning needs, you know, that was addressed by that school as well, and the nursery was a good start for him as well. So thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think the next one on the order of people speaking. Yes, here he is, Councillor Thomas. Neal.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, Evenlode and Cogan Primary are both very good schools and exemplars for education and provide guidance within the consortium. And I feel it is disappointing that so many speakers seem to suggest that their management is of a lower standard than that of the 2 nurseries. It's clear that there's been a lot of misunderstanding and misinformation and rumour being spread around in regards to these amalgamations in management and governance, looking at the themes and the responses to the consultation, which I have taken the time to read. Butte Cottage and Cogan Nursery Schools will both continue on their current sites as the excellent schools that they are. The change is just managerial. A consistent complaint from our council taxpayers is that there are too many managers and this seems to fit with their aims by establishing, instead of two management teams, just the one. Consistency and continuation of curriculum will be ensured, making the children's transition from making the children's transition from the nursery to primary more smooth, and the children will not find that when they do make the transition, they aren't going backwards, and having to pick up on the new reading schemes and stuff where there have been changes in reading schemes. That's certainly been a problem in the past between Butte Cottage and Evenlode, where the reading scheme in Butte Cottage didn't quite fit with the one in Evenlode, and that set the children back a few weeks, or if not months. In the case of Butte Cottage, the outside space is not planned to change. That's one of the rumours that's been going around. And the children will continue to benefit from the gardens and the orchard associated with the school. In fact, looking at theme 8, which in the report, if this proposal were made in the future, if the proposal to change that were made in the future, I would actively campaign against such a change. But there is no such proposal at this time in this densely populated corner of my ward. It's unfortunate the phrase transfer to the amalgamated school is used in the report, as it appears that some people have read that as a physical move of site. That isn't what was intended. It is, as I keep saying, merely an administration change to a different management structure, with all staff and children continuing in their present nursery sites. Moving a nursery provision from the present sites to the schools they feed would be wrong, as it would impact the quality of the environment of all 4 schools, and I am pleased that this is not part of the proposal. I would be grateful if officers could explicitly confirm, for the benefit of our parents and children, that this explicitly not part of this proposal. Mrs. Gould has over 40 years experience in teaching, I think, and I congratulate her for her dedication and her leadership. But this leadership will naturally change in the future anyway. A specific question for officers: will these proposals entail any redundancy of teaching staff? Finally, a school is not its buildings or location. It is the ethos and expertise of its staff, and the enthusiasm and efforts of its pupils, the feelings of belonging and ownership. This can be true of a school like Eton or Rodine, or a school in a mud hut. None of the proposals in this report will be detrimental to the excellent teaching in any of the 4 schools involved. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I was muted there. Thank you very much for that. I don't know whether the officers want to come back briefly on the points that Councillor Thomas made. Yes.
Within the proposal, it is clear that there are no intended redundancies for either of the nursery schools. And, I know from discussions with the governing bodies of the primaries, they have indicated that they wouldn't be looking to make any changes within the nursery settings in relation to staffing. But, that was made very clear to the staff during the consultation periods when we met with them.
Thank you for that. That was my view, but it has been raised as issues within the consultation. I just wanted to make sure that people understood that that was not part of it, and that those responses in the consultation that assumed that is one of the reasons why Councillor Burnett, I think, referred to some of the responses being based on misinformation. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for that, and for the contribution. I think I can agree to some extent with what you said, Neil, regarding that a school what makes the school, but equally I think it is fair to say that the buildings contribute to that as well, and a sense of place, and that is important as well. I know people will make me fed up from mentioning it, but if buildings were not important, then Llancarvan School would still be remaining in Llancarvan rather than being moved to Roos. But that's perhaps something slightly different. I've still got Councillor Birch, Rhiannon, with her hand up.
Chair, I hate to interrupt, but I think you're sharing your screen.
Am I? Oh dear.
Yes. If you can see along the bottom of your icons, there's just to the right of your microphone, or at least it's on my right, there is a square with a cross in it. Could you click that for us? No, not that one. In the icons at the bottom of your screen. So
if I could find an icon at the bottom of the screen that has that, I would certainly do it.
Go down go to where your microphone is.
Oh, I see. Yes, I think. Yes.
And can you see that there's a square with a cross in it?
No, I can see there's a square with an arrow in it.
No, you clicked it.
Done it.
We're back to normal.
There we are, done it. There we are. Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. I think of the people we had before, I don't know if Rhiannon wants to come back in at this point, but I got the next speaker in the list. We started off with Councillor Rowlands. Rhiannon, though, you've now popped up again.
Yeah.
I'm happy if Rhiannon wants to go first, or me.
Thank you. I was just going to make the point that I don't know that the place is that important. I mean, I think this is actually irrelevant to the discussion, but my father was in boarding school during the Second World War, which was bombed. So he spent a lot of his education in makeshift church halls, and in fact did some of his exams there. So, and in fact, friends of his did some of their exams in an air raid shelter. So I don't know that that necessarily makes any difference. I don't think place is as important as the ethos and the spirit of the school, and that is contained within people, not buildings.
Okay, thank you for that. Leighton.
Thank you, Chair. I go back, and I know Councillor Thomas spoke about this, but again, what is the purpose if it's not to address the educational standards, and it's not to save money or move, what is the purpose of it? And I do find it bizarre from two Labour councillors to sort of speak down at the towards the speakers that were presented. I found that very not complimentary, to be honest. I just want to emphasise the importance of a standalone head teacher. Parents clearly and also governors clearly know that this makes a big difference, and they don't want the change in governance in the structure. I felt it very good having my own head teacher when I was in nursery years ago. And parents described it, Bute Cottage and Cogan nurseries as the jewels in the crown of the education system. So surely we should be looking to preserve that rather than, amalgamating it. And therefore, before anyone else comes in, I would like to put forward a recommendation to the Cabinet that they do not go ahead with the amalgamation of the two schools, Bute Cottage Nursery into Evenlode, and Cogan Nursery into Cogan Primary School. Thank you, Chair.
Unmute myself. I don't know whether there's anyone. Well, can I just say, and I'm not going to cut debate short, but I'll second Councillor Rowland's proposal. I've got the cabinet member, but perhaps before we go to the cabinet member, perhaps we could, someone who hasn't spoken this afternoon, Councillor Hodges. Nick.
Thank you, Chairman. A question that was asked earlier from Councillor Perks was a question about the number of schools, standalone nurseries that we still have in the Vale Glamorgan, which is a council that we work to. And the answer was 2, which are the 2 that we're discussing tonight. We've made various changes as a council over the last few years. I remember we decided that Carrickston would become a school based on 2 sites and still working together under one management team. I also remember that we went even further with Ysgol Gynradd Bro Morgannwg, which went to a 3 to 19 school based with one staff on one site, as it happened. And basically that's worked well. And I also note that poor old Cowbridge, you know, we always forget poor old Cowbridge. Poor old Cowbridge from September this year will go 3 to 19 as well. That is seen and was argued and was received well by all councillors as a positive pedagogical this debate that would have the run of teachers and experience and knowledge, as well as being able to operate financially well and on one site. Now, these two schools that we're discussing tonight are basically separated through history and a small distance, but they will operate and they send their children onto those respective primary schools. In fact, we had a parent on earlier who said that her children went through Bute and then went on to Evenlode. Well, nothing changes there. That's exactly what will happen now. The other point that
we seem to have a problem. Nick has both frozen and gone silent.
Councillor Hodges, I think we've had a glitch with your technology. Can you try saying something? No, we've lost audio and you're unmuted.
Maybe if he turns his camera off and gets more broadband.
Yes, if you could try turning your camera off, remuting your microphone and unmuting it, and we'll see if we can hear you. Could you try saying something? No, I'm afraid we can't hear you, Councillor Hodges. I don't know whether it's worth you going out of the meeting and coming back in to see if it reboots it. And Chair, would you be happy for Councillor Hodges to readdress?
I think that's a sensible way. Perhaps leave, but he needs to come back in straight away, I think, doesn't he, if he's going to hear the whole of the debate?
Yeah, let's give him some seconds. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
Do you mind if I come in on a minor point while you're waiting?
I think it would be good if Councillor Hodges could hear any points
I think
if we can get him back in.
Hear the whole, everyone's contribution.
He is a guest, so he'll pop up on our screens, I'd have thought. I may ask Gareth, who's supporting me, to see if he can give him a call, if possible, please. Oh, I've heard a noise. Councillor Hodges, are you back with us?
Doesn't seem to be, does he?
No, he popped up. Fortunately, Chair, because it's not a decision-making committee, Councillor Hodges will still be able to participate in a vote because it's recommendations.
Okay.
But
okay,
so.
Well, I think, can we perhaps make some? I think we can. We've given him, I think, quite enough time to come back in. So let's see what happens. But perhaps as Morgan said,
to give him a call just to see if we can maybe get him in on the phone or something.
If you can, yes. Morgan, you said you only had minor points you wanted to make, so perhaps this would be the appropriate time to make them.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was in relation to, I believe Councillor Birch said something earlier about the headship, and somebody else has said it as well. Both settings currently have an acting head teacher. So there is not a substantive head teacher in either of those nursery settings.
Can I ask, is that because of these proposals that it's not seen necessary to appoint someone at this stage?
No, in both settings, the former head teachers retired, and governing bodies, we had discussions with them. At that time, there hadn't been any formal consultations or proposals, but both governing bodies of the nurseries decided to have acting head teachers in place.
You said there hadn't been any formal discussions, but were there any intimations that this was likely to happen?
I think conversations took place that it might happen at some point. The governing bodies agreed to appoint acting head teachers for the interim period.
Yeah, well, yeah, that seems to be logically following from that. They thought this seems little point appointing a permanent head in those circumstances. Right.
That was a governing body decision, not a council.
No, I appreciate it was a governing body decision. Can I just ask at this point, have we any sign of Councillor Hodges?
I did see him come back in, if he's still with us.
I'm back.
Oh, hello.
You're back.
I am back. I don't know what happened there. I don't want to repeat a lot of myself. I was just making the point about Carrickston, Bromoganog and Cowbridge. I don't understand the chairman's continuous points about Llancarbon. I think that's a red herring, and that's something that was decided a long time ago by this council. If he wants to refight old battles, that's fine, but let's keep to the subject in hand.
Indeed, let's keep the subject in hand, and if Councillor Hodges wants to make any more points, perhaps he can make them this point, but he said he didn't wish to go over what he said already. So, Councillor Hodges, anything you further wish to say that's relevant to the discussion?
Yeah, chair the meeting properly. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Hodges. I can see that the Cabinet member wishes to speak. Councillor Burnett, if you have anything that you wish to put to us, and then we'll go to a vote.
Thank you, Chair. As I said earlier, when I spoke, that I would welcome the opportunity to come back in and just respond to any points made. And I think that what I will again reaffirm, which a lot of contributors have done, is that there will be no change to staffing. There will be no change to surroundings. There is no reason to think that anything in terms of the standards of teaching and learning within these schools will be altered in any way at all. I'm hugely fortunate in my role that I visit very many schools, and very many of the ones that have previously amalgamated. I see the amazing teaching and learning that goes on across the Vale at all levels. And that's the reason why we actually have such pressure on our school numbers, because of the number of people that want to come to Vale schools. The vast majority of the work going on in our schools is exemplary, and I am absolutely thrilled at that. We try to match the teaching and learning with facilities, and that's why 11 new schools have been built since 2014, 5 in just the last year. We want top quality facilities alongside top quality teaching and learning, and that is what we are working towards. There are a couple of comments that I would like to respond to. First of all, I would apologise to Mrs. Rees. I did not intend to come across as in any way negative or patronising, and I think she would know that from previous contact with me, that is not the way in which I deal with people. But I would say to Councillor Rowlands, I'm a bit concerned because the original Cabinet report did come to scrutiny as part of the consultation, and that is normally the process in any school proposal. It comes here, and in fact, as part of today's papers, the discussions of that scrutiny committee were included. So it was part of the consultation, and that was published in the original Cabinet report, that's exactly what the process was that would be followed. Councillor Rowland's questions about the purpose of the merger of governance and leadership. Well, actually, it's laid out in page 8 onwards in the proposals in the consultation document, which has gone to both cabinet meetings and to scrutiny. They have been in the papers, and it's totally open. I won't repeat it, but I could read it all to you. The reasons for it are completely there, and there will be an impact on cost, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is the whole purpose why we've got this policy going forward. And then he asks why a feasibility assessment. Well, you would, because you actually want to see whether or not you've got the best model and whether or not it would be better if it was on one site. I'm on record as saying I don't think it would be feasible. But actually, as we all know, cabinet members lead the decisions. We don't just stick a finger in the air and decide on something ourselves. We are the person that takes the reports through based on policy and based on evidence. I can go through and read you the comments in all the scrutiny reports. They're up here in front of me. And I would say that, in terms of the feasibility, there were comments of people who don't have cars, that live in the even load catchment area and actually walk from Lower Penarth up to the nursery every day and back. And the session times are quite short. So, you have to do feasibility to see whether or not that would work. But there is such a workload on the 21st Century Schools team that unless it was prioritised, it would be a number of years before we could even look at it with the amount of other work. So, I wanted to clarify those points, and hopefully, if all this goes through statutory notice and it goes through, I hope that in time people will be reassured that actually it was the right step. And if you'd like to as well, Councillor Kemp, if you'd like to come to the new South Point Primary, I'm sure you'd be absolutely delighted with the facilities being provided at Wales's first zero carbon primary school.
As a governor, I'm sure I will take the opportunity, because I think our next governing body meeting will actually be held at the school itself. So thank you for that, Cabinet Member. I've got no one else indicating to speak. We have a proposal from Councillor Rowlands, which I seconded. So I'll jump to a conclusion and say that I don't imagine the proposal has been approved and being put and seconded is going to meet unanimous approval. So I think we'll probably need to take a vote on this.
I would imagine so, Councillor.
Yes, that's perhaps that's a fair, assessment on my part that it's not going to be unanimously approved that we ask Cabinet to change its mind. So I think perhaps we need to take a vote. Probably the best way is to go through individual members.
Yes, could I just jump in, Chair, very briefly? If we could start with Councillor Rowlands repeating his recommendation, just so it's fresh in everyone's minds, I think that would be helpful because it was a little while ago. And I would just, obviously, it is the first meeting for the co-opted members as parent governor representatives. They do have voting rights on the committee. So Kathy and Lucy, just to clarify, we will come to your names and the options for you to vote with are for, against or abstain, depending on how you've interpreted it today. So I don't know if Councillor Parker wants to come in, Chair.
He obviously does, yes.
Yes, thank you. Just a point of clarification and apologies to Leighton Rowlands for bringing it up. I understand that you might be suspended, but I'm not sure whether that is active at the moment or is likely to be active. So
not
to clarify that.
One at a time. Thank you for that very helpful comment, Councillor Parker. I'm sure Councillor Rowlands will not be at this meeting if he was unable to be at this meeting, so I think we can ignore that. Councillor
Chairman, there's no need to be rude. That is a fair point that I have made.
Councillor Parker, there was no need for the intervention you made. It was totally unnecessary. Councillor Rowlands, if you wish to continue with your clarifying your proposal.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm very disappointed that comment was made by Councillor Parker, but I'll carry on. Recommend to the Cabinet that the amalgamation of Bute Cottage to Eden Lode Primary School and also Cogan Nursery School and Cogan Primary School does not go ahead. I hope that, if Catherine, is that clear enough for everyone?
Yes, thank you. It's just because it was a little further back in the debate, wanted to be sure.
Okay, well, I seconded that, so perhaps, Catherine, if you could go through members of the committee.
I will. So if I could take your vote, please, Councillor Kemp.
I'm in favour of the proposal.
Thank you. Councillor Birch.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Griffiths.
Hi there. I'm in favour of Councillor Rowlands' proposal.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hodges.
Against.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jarvie.
Against.
Thank you very much. Councillor Norman.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Perks.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Rowlands.
No surprise, in favour.
Thank you for that. And Councillor Thomas.
Against.
Thank you for that. And if I could take it to Lucy Barraclough.
In favour.
In favour of the recommendation.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And Cathy Williams. Is Cathy still online? Let me... I can't see that she's still in the meeting, Chair. I don't know if anyone else would like to look at their screen and just confirm that for me.
Yeah, I don't think she is. I think obviously she's been scared at by the experience of her first committee meeting, but I hope that's not the case. So I think
certainly an introduction, isn't it?
So I think that concludes the voting, and I think the result is clear. I think, if I'm right in counting, 7-4, 7 against. So 4. No, the other way around. 4 for the proposal.
4 in favour of the proposal, against. 7 against it. You're dead on, Chair. So recommendation is not carried.
Okay. Thank you for that. And can I, if they're still with us, can I thank the members of the public who participated tonight? That was most appreciated. If you want to stay, if you're still here and want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're more than welcome.
I can see Councillor Birch's hand is up.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Rhiannon?
Right, thank you. Can I move the officer's recommendations then, please?
Oh, yes.
I'll second.
Seconded.
Second.
Okay. Is this required to go to a vote again?
I'll be perfectly honest. I think the result of the vote would be quite clear. I don't see any point in going to a vote on this.
As long as committee are happy to proceed in that way, the recommendations have then been moved and seconded.
Sorry, Chair, can I just say that I don't support the recommendation? Can I have that on record, please?
Okay, well, would you like it? Oh, sorry.
We can take a vote.
We can take a vote, Leighton, if you'd like us to. I got no objection. It's going to be it'll be a fairly quick one, I think. Let's take a vote. Let's take a vote on it then.
Okay, 2 seconds. Okay, so voting on the recommendations as contained in the report. Councillor Kemp.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Birch.
For.
Councillor Griffiths.
Against.
Councillor Hodges.
For.
Councillor Jarvie.
For.
Councillor Norman.
For.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Perks.
For.
Councillor Rowlands.
Against.
Councillor Thomas.
For.
And Lucy, if you're still with us.
Yes, I am. Against.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm sure everyone will have been keeping track of that. That's 7 votes for the recommendations and 4 against. So the recommendations.
Well, can I just check to make sure that Kathy Williams hasn't popped up somewhere?
Oh, I'm sorry. I assumed she had gone. That's a very fair point. Kathy, if you're with us.
No, I think she's not. Okay, well that's clear, and that brings us to the end of agenda item 4. So if I can move on to agenda item 5, which is a reference to Scrutiny Corporate Safeguarding Midterm Report. This is a reference from Cabinet on the 22nd of November, and I can see Jason bouncing up and down, ready to present this to us.
Good evening, Chair. Thank you. If I just, it will be a very brief update for you. Just to say, obviously, the purpose of this midterm report is to provide that summary of the activity that's taken place in relation to the corporate arrangements for safeguarding across the authority. In the executive summary, obviously there is corporate responsibility to ensure that there are effective arrangements in place for safeguarding children and adults who require specific council services. This report provides a mid-year update on the effectiveness of those arrangements and the developments to date. And the corporate safeguarding group ensures that there is scrutiny and assurance of corporate safeguarding arrangements. So of the recommendations to highlight to you, obviously that the report is referred to all scrutiny committees are important today. Some background. This update provides a composite of activity across the council. The scrutiny committee should be particularly consider elements in line with their portfolio area. As I'm sure you're aware, our duty in the social services as well to be an Act of 2014 and working together under Part 7 of the Act provides guidance on the corporate safeguarding responsibility for the council. Some of the key issues for consideration this evening is the work of the corporate safeguarding group continues to take place with a focus on the strategic overview of safeguarding activity across the local authority and is conduit for exploring emerging issues and priorities that are cross-cutting. The corporate safeguarding group have maintained regular meetings since April 2021 and all representatives shared areas of priority with the safeguarding policy, and in essence, Chair, that is the content of the mid report, and I will welcome any questions on that at all.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Jason. Are there any members who wish to ask questions, make comments? I can hear someone talking in the background there. I don't know whether it's your end, Jason, that or not.
Yeah, that was the dog coming through at speed.
Well, it doesn't seem that. No, well, thank you for that. It's I think sometimes, unfortunately, we don't perhaps give something like this the consideration we should, because it is a very, very important, subject as far as the council is concerned. Safeguarding in all its aspects. But again, well, thank you very much for the contribution. It's appreciated. I don't know why you're bouncing up and down. Perhaps it's your camera that's doing it rather than you. So I think this has been referred to us for our consideration. So I think we've considered the report, and can we say we've noted the report and thank everyone, and particularly Jason, for their hard work. Members happy with that?
Yes. Thanks,
happy we note. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you, Jason. Right. Second reference we have today is the reshaping of the Arts Service update and Arts Central Gallery review, which went to Cabinet on the 20th of December. I can see Trevor is now ready and willing to proceed with this one. So over to you, Trevor.
Thanks, Chair. So this is the content of this has been brought to scrutiny a couple of times in the past. And we've had some recent discussions about the Arts Service and the use of Arts Central. And we said we would look at a number of options and bring those back for discussion. So that's the purpose of this paper today, to follow through on that process. The paper is broken down in a couple of different sections. I won't go through them point by point explicitly. I'll just pick out some of the highlights if that's easier, because some of the stuff you will have heard in some of the previous reports. Under key issues for consideration, we've provided an update on the Penarth Pier Pavilion. So as you'll recall, in March of 2021, this was brought back into running of the council. We've put in the council's catering company, Big Fresh. We hired a pavilion manager, and we did a consultation with the public on the use of that space going forward. So there's some updates in there, just giving you some detail about some of the events that have been run. So we've got, it's well over 200 events now that have either taken place or that have been booked up until June of this year, which is really good. We've had a number of arts exhibitions, and some of these exhibitions have been shared with Arts Central. We've done a number of events around the Summer of Fun and the Winter of Wellbeing. So things like some arts courses for kids, some Halloween discos, and that kind of thing, all within the confines and considerations with COVID at present. Section 2.4 and 2.5 give some additional details, just outlining sort of the range and scale and scope of some of the events that have been there. So a lot of the feedback we had from the public was in relation to focusing on community events and not on sort of businessy side of things. So there's some examples there of author talks that we've had, local choirs, and some of the weddings that we've followed through on that were booked when the space was being run previously. There's also details there about some of the music events, so that's an area that we wanted to explore, and we had a lot of positive feedback on that, as well as the cinema reopening in that space. Section 2.8 talks about the makerspace that we have in Penarth. This kind of straddles libraries and arts and culture, but the idea of the makerspace project is looking at creating a space where folks can come in and use sort of 21st century digital art, so digital music programs. There's lots of things like IMAX, 3D printers are going in there, CAD design software, so folks are able to come in and use those use those facilities, both as an extension of what they're being able to use in a lot of the new education facilities that we've built, but also catering to an additional sort of art form that is becoming more and more popular. In that space, we've got a project officer who's helping develop the initiative, and we're currently running a couple of surveys with the public looking at what sort of expansion of that provision they would like to see when it opens. 2.11 there also makes reference to an expression of interest bid that we've put in towards towards putting a makerspace into Berry Library as well. So making sure that those facilities are available across the Vale. So that's the next stage. Section 212 talks about some of the arts events we ran over the pandemic out of Art Central. One of them is the Arts in Isolation. So this was a digital program. We've now got the physical, or we did have the physical artistic works which were out on display. And some details about the art census that we're looking to take forward to help build that database of artistic organisations across the Vale and do some sign pointing and leverage some of that expertise. 214, as I mentioned, talks about some of the contributions from the art service towards the Summer of Fun, which has been really well received, and we're really looking forward to bringing these forward with things like the Winter of Wellbeing. Section 2.16 then moves on to the second element we were looking at, which is a review of Art Central. So this is the space attached to Berry Library in King's Square. We had a number of discussions pre-COVID at Scrutiny. We had a number of speakers that came in, which was really good discussion. And then over the course of the pandemic, as we have been able to, we've been trying to progress it. So there's a number of options that are presented here. I'll run through them really quickly for you, as you've obviously got the papers in front of you. Number one, the option we looked at was maintaining the status quo, so keeping things as is. Some of the challenges with this and some of the reasons we are looking at Art Central is because of the overhead costs of running the space and the sort of limited engagement that we're having to date. So we're looking at what are the opportunities to widen access. There's reference in that option of some of the good work that's been going on currently as it is now. So these conversations with some of these different groups, Art Central Friends, some of the dementia groups, Women's Wales Arts Association, those sorts of groups, those conversations have continued, and we would look to keep those going forward. There's also some detail in one of the bullet points on page 7 around the footfall. So again, we've got nearly a quarter of a million people passing through Berry Library, but we've got 12,500 passing through the Art Central itself. So it's key that we get some of those folks in one of the areas over to the next one. I can see Councillor Johnson's got his hand up. Do you want to go to him, or?
Can I suggest perhaps you finish your presentation, then perhaps we'll go back to members then and.
Okay. Yeah. So option 2 is looking at one of the suggestions from the surveys that we had were to look at fees and the introduction of paid events. So there's some details there of how that might work in practice and some of the projections of what those might be. So this is entrance fees and additional paid workshops and general admission. Some of the concerns around this were one of the big things that came through the consultation, and especially within the current climate, is arts and culture being an area to support well-being in the public. So we want to make sure that there is as much access to that as possible and not introduce fees to gain entry to it, which might provide a barrier. There are some details in there of some of the specialist events that folks would like to see that to be run out of Art Central. So we're going to be looking at those going forward. And there's some details of what some of the income might be. So there's a figure there of about 15,000 per annum operating at full capacity. Option 3 then is the preferred option that we're looking at. And this is keeping Art Central, modernising the area. So similar to what we did at the Pavilion in terms of things like some of the AV and some of the facilities available there, greater integration with the library and establishment of a cafe bar. So this is the model that we use at the Pavilion, and the benefit there is one, it provides additional value to folks who want to use that space, because there is the opportunity then when you're having an event to have coffees and teas and that kind of thing. But also the agreement that we have at the Pavilion is a share of the profits that are brought in, or sorry, a share of the turnover that's brought in by Big Fresh goes towards the running of the building. So that has a significant contribution to some of the expensive overhead costs in a grade 2 listed building. So that's one of the benefits there. The refit of the space, again, mirrors some of the advances in technology that we see in some of the different areas of arts that we are looking to promote more of going forward. There's some examples on page 10 of other places that have done this sort of work in the past and where it's worked well, and how it might look in practice. Option number 4, then, passing the running of the gallery over to a third-party trust or arts organisation. So this is basically handing over the keys to somebody to run it for us. In the points, there's some examples of where that's worked in other areas. So the Anwen Cultural Trust in Bridgend, for example, or mirroring a lot of the success that we've had with the community library scheme, where we work in partnership with them in delivering their services. The biggest stumbling block with that model is the overhead costs of the space and the running costs of Arts Central, just because of the building and the size, and some of the logistics around it being completely integrated into the same building as the library. So that is seen as a big deterrent, because we would need, or anybody interested in running it, we would need to have confidence that they would be able to meet those costs, and that might limit who is interested in running the space for us. Option 5 is to close the gallery and find an alternative use of space. This was really clear. People weren't interested in this as an option, and there was a lot of determination to look at ways to keep it open. If it were to be used, alternative uses of space, there's some details in here. So one of the things we looked at, and that we looked at previously, was could we use the space as a museum space? Because there's been some interest, and we said we would explore that previously. So we've looked at the costs in previous years of running a museum space, and then we've reflected some of the other considerations in here. So it's things around certification, it's things around the additional cost for curation, for climate control, and then how that would work against the overall aim of trying to reduce the costs associated with running the space, and to try and make it as cost neutral as we can going forward. Number 6 then was to look at closing the gallery and secure a commercial tenant. So there's some details there about where the building is located, what the possible uses could be, and what those rents could look like going forward. The crux of it is that there is a lot of space that's currently available in the high street in Barry, and the aim of this project isn't to compete with those who are there or to take business away from them. So this wasn't felt as an appropriate option going forward. At the end of the document, there's been some scoring and some background papers linking to the strategy and the previous cabinet reports about this. So that's it in a nutshell.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. I've got two members wishing to speak. Firstly, I've got Councillor Johnson, who's not a member of the committee, but I have no objection as chairman to allowing him to speak. So, Ian, if you want to kick off in the nicest possible way.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you much to Trevor for the presentation there. I just wanted to jump in at the start of the debate, as I'm not a member of the committee, although I appreciate this as a reference rather than anything else. So thank you to Trevor for the for the presentation there. I'm speaking tonight as both local member. It's in my ward. Just to note that I am a member of Barry Arts Festival and also Barry Town Council, which is one of the tenants of the building. I think that I'll try and be brief because obviously it's been a fairly long meeting, but I'll make two quick points if I can. The first is on a policy basis, which is the role of arts and well-being in general. There still remain, it feels to me, there's very much an attempt to make something cost neutral or full cost recovery, rather than considering that these things are an investment in their own rights within our education and culture sections. I mean, this is I think an important point, that it's not just about recovery of cost. It's clear that from the paper that there is a preferred option, which is option 3, which is the introduction of the cafe bar. I think that there is a number of points that should be considered in terms of practical impact as the proposal is developed, if that's indeed what Cabinet really wants to do. The first of these is whether the introduction of a cafe bar fundamentally changes the nature of the Arts Central Gallery, which is a relatively small space within Barry Library. Whether the size of the cafe bar and its economic sustainability substantially impact upon the central purpose of the Arts Central Gallery. Does it become more of a cafe than it does a gallery? The access issues to the gallery, as noted in the report, which include the entries by Barry Town Council, and whether the creation of a cafe bar is, and as was referred to, I think in one of the later points there, whether the creation of a cafe bar is in itself a competition with existing local businesses on Halton Road. So I think there's a number of issues that that should be considered very strongly as this proposal is discussed and moved forward. And I remain concerned, with no disrespect to anybody involved in this development of this process so far, but I remain concerned the council has no real vision for the arts in Barry, and these proposals are more interested in resolving internal budget issues than delivering a high quality arts programme. And I think that high quality arts programme is really what I actually want to see from the Arts Central Gallery, not just a suggestion that it should be about clawing back money in one form or another. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Trevor, for your report.
Do you want me to come back,
very much.
Chair?
Yeah. Do you want to come back on individual members they speak, or would you prefer to come back at the end? I'm quite happy whichever way you wish to do it.
I have the memory of Swiss cheese these days, so if I could respond to anyone,
you better start now then. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, the stuff that Councillor Johnson raises, I mean, those are all really valid points. What I would say in regards to not just looking about it cost neutral and the well-being elements of arts and culture. Again, I would refer back to a lot of the involvement we've had with some of the programs over COVID and the investment that we've done with arts and culture in the pier. Second to that, it's also worth noting we had discussions probably about a year ago now at this committee where we talked about funding. Following that, I've set up an arts and culture reserve specifically for supporting what we do with arts and culture going forward. So there is some money that is available to invest in these programs, not just about cost cutting. The issue around sustainability and moving forward, again, if we can reduce some of the overhead costs with those spaces, we can do more with them. And that's the ultimate goal. So I take those points to heart, and hopefully that's reassuring. The other point he raised was about direct competition with other folks running cafes and such in the area. Again, the intention isn't to compete or take business away from them. It's a mechanism by which people might want to hold additional events, artistic events, because we will have some catering facilities there. If it's any consolation, when we opened the cafe at the Pavilion, the first thing my team did was to go out to all of the neighbouring establishments and talk about how they can help each other. So when special events are going on, some of the stuff is provided by neighbouring traders. So we would again look to replicate that going forward.
Thank you, Trevor. Trevor. Next speaker I've got is Neal Thomas. Neal?
Chair?
Yes.
Can I just note that we do have one more councillor who's not on the committee? I don't know whether you wanted to go through them first. You're on mute.
Some people say that's good. Yeah, I can see Councillor Charles has indicated she wishes to speak, who's not a member of the committee. So perhaps we could.
It's up to you. It's just what you said.
No,
at the start.
I'll take the speakers in the order we've got them.
Oh, okay.
So we'll save you for later, Janice.
Well, I am going to have to leave very shortly, unfortunately.
If that's the case, then perhaps if you press for time, then yes, I'm happy to take you next. So
I appreciate that, Chair. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. There's 6 points I would like to make about Art Central Gallery and its potential. Number one, it's a superb physical space. Art Central is by far the best gallery run by a county council in the whole of Wales. It has movable screens which make it adaptable and able to be configured in various ways. French door access to patio terrace and adjacent park, as well as proximity to King's Square, make it an excellent arts venue. Many celebrities in the art world describe Art Central as the jewel in the Vale's crown. It would be a travesty to destroy and diminish the scale of this quality space, very costly as well. Number two, but Art Central is underutilised. Far too few exhibitions and cultural events occur across each year. Exhibitions are on show for too long, and there is an absence of events for diverse groups and audiences. Opportunities for small-scale performers, readings, cabaret, drama, musical recitals are offered by individuals and groups, but these are not taken up by the Arts Development Officer. The chance to raise gallery income via ticketed events that have frustrated many willing to collaborate, for example, Barry Arts Festival events. Number three, gallery could support learning education. Arts Central is ideally placed to be a central focus for the Wales new expressive arts curriculum, which all schools of the Vale and Wales must engage with. The Arts Development Service should liaise with the responsible expressive arts subject teachers in order to develop a programme of exhibitions, workshops and performances which would assist in the delivery of the exciting new expressive arts curriculum, which is not taking place. This would vastly improve and fulfil the gallery's community remit. When the user demographic and increased footfall and its profile within the Vale, where children exhibit and perform, parents and families follow. Number four, comparisons may be helpful. Whilst the comparisons between Penarth Pavilion and Barry Arts Central are inevitable, it must be noted that each venue serves very different areas and demographics. The pier is already a desirable seaside tourist location in contrast to the town centre of Barry, which currently is in need of regeneration and regenerating. Centre and like the Pavilion, become a destination venue, an important part of an arts and cultural trail. Number five, staffing Arts Central for the future. Is the correct team in place to facilitate a newly shaped space and actually make it work? A cafe might increase footfall into the space and possibly some income. However, establishing exciting programmes of exhibitions, regular workshops for children and adults, and organising cultural events with wide appeal requires vision and energy. Importantly, it needs a willingness to plan well ahead and to collaborate with others productively. In my view, this has just not happened sufficiently over the last decade. With these things in place, Barry Arts Central would have more potential to thrive, be extremely successful, but this area has been lacking. Number six, huge potential. It's a culturally vibrant Vale is the council's stated goal, and Arts Central Gallery must surely play a vital role in fulfilling the vision and objectives of its art strategy. It could be an exciting and efficient hub for the Vale and develop strong links with venues to rotate and share programmes. I really do hope when voting for a recommendation, you seriously think about these points. Thank you very much for your time and for letting me speak.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. If I'd known you were making 6 points like that, I'm not sure I'd let you speak at this point. But no, thank you very much for the very useful contribution. Thank you. I don't know, Trevor. Trevor, do you want to respond to that?
Just really quickly, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with a lot of that. I mean, we share the same ambitions, and that's why we've done the work that we've done over COVID. That's why we've expanded the team with the other manager. That's why we've done a lot of learning over the last 18 months, and we're starting to see a lot of that success take forward. So, you know, I'm looking forward to what we can do with that space.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thomas?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Trevor, for your once again really good presentation and report. It's off the standard we've now come to expect from you, and thank you and well done. To start with, in terms of the Pier Pavilion, as some of you know, my mother passed away at the end of last year, and we held her wake in the pavilion, and I would like to express my thanks publicly to the people in both Big Fresh and the pavilion itself in their extremely sensitive and thoughtful and supportive way in which they catered that, and it was magnificent. The AV that was there allowed us to present a video slideshow on the big wall at the top of the hall there, and the family were all really delighted with that. So I wanted to put that on record. The makerspace in Penarth Library is it's a new feature, but I believe it's already taking off from what I've seen, and it is on the it's certainly an attraction to the. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention in terms of the Pier Pavilion as well. No, it's the Turnhouse Gallery. The Turnhouse Gallery in Penarth, which has been that's a town council thing, but it's a destination, arts destination now, according to the Daily Sunday Telegraph, and that is enhancing the footfall around Penarth, as is the Pier Pavilion. Now that it's become more successful, the cafe down there under Big Fresh is getting very good reports as well, and more people are coming down there, which increases the footfall on the front and benefits all the other businesses. That brings me to the Art Central in Barry, where option 3 seems to be the way to go, because that will provide a vibrant destination venue, as is the pier and Turner House. It should attract more visitors to Barry Town and have a positive impact on Holton Road businesses by increasing general footfall. It's something to be encouraged. It's something that will benefit Barry, I believe, and the Vale as a whole. And I'm supportive of option 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I don't think you need to respond to that, do you, Trevor?
No, just to say thank you, and the staff appreciate your comments.
Just polish the halo a little bit more, perhaps, and okay. Next speaker I've got is indicated is Councillor Burnett. I'm assuming that you're effectively taking the place of the cabinet member for this.
Well, actually, Chair, libraries are under me anyway, and so is Big Fresh. So we sort of work as a double act. Catherine was planning to get here, but obviously she hasn't been able to join us. So yes, I'm quite happy to. I've been taking notes, but I'm quite happy to wait until the others have spoken if you want me to respond, or else I can come back in, whichever you'd prefer.
I think perhaps leave it until the others have spoken, then come back and respond.
Okay,
the best.
I'll leave my hand up, and then I'll speak later.
Okay, fine. Right, Councillor Rowlands.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a few points I wanted to raise. I've been to, obviously, Art Central in Barry. Fantastic space there. I think the problem it has is it's not it's not marketed very well, and I think that's the big issue. And that's I raised at the previous scrutiny when this came up. Marketing is a massive issue for me, especially in the council as a whole. It's not just the arts, leisure as well. That's another gripe on my part. But if we can market it pretty well, surely we can get the people to go there. And I'll, in the report, and Trevor could potentially correct me on this, the Barry Library in 2018 and 19 saw 241,070 people, whereas Art Central was 12,500, both in the same space. And I question, why is that? Well, the library's established. The library's always sort of been there in some sort of way. I remember when it was the old building, when you know, it was dusty and very, not as modern as it is. So why isn't the same football going into the Art Central? And I think I'll use an experience of my own. The only time I hear about exhibitions and stuff like that is when we get council emails about exhibitions. I don't see it in the press. I don't really see it on social media, and I'm not dismissing the comms team, but it's not on one of their top priority lists as far as I'm concerned. It should be equal to everyone else. So I think the crux of it is marketing, and I paid events, art drawings and painting. Yeah, I would love to learn all that, and obviously not most people can't afford. I think it was like £25 a session or something like that. But if we can sort of market it as it is now, and sort of, I disagree with having a cafe bar. It will have an effect on the traders in Houghton Road. I know, and I'm sure Councillor Burnett will come in this. It could potentially, a step change in the economy of Houghton Road. I would disagree with that. We've got 4, 5, 6 cafes along. I don't think it would sort of help that situation. And the reason why is because it's not marketed as well as it should be. And that's what we should be doing. We have a great space, and we need to run it. I am disappointed the cabinet member for Learning and Culture isn't here, because at the previous meeting, she understood that marketing was the key. And I would like to have, her view on it, but I'm sure Councillor Burnett will do a sterling job in representing her views as well.
Thank you, Leighton. Do you want to make any comment at this point, Trevor?
Again, I wouldn't disagree with anything that Councillor Rowland said. We had this discussion previously at Scrutiny about the deficits we have in marketing in terms of arts and culture, and the fact that we need to do better. And I accept that, and that's definitely something that we've been working towards. At present, that's working with our colleagues in the comms team to help support us in developing a marketing strategy, and that includes bringing some additional expertise to focus on marketing Arts and Central within that specific venue, and I do think that will make a difference. Yeah.
Could I just quickly come in there, Chair?
Very
just
quickly.
Purely on the point with Trev. I think you need to emphasise to the comms team, you're not second best. You are above. You're not above everyone else, but you're the same level field as everyone else. And I think that I'm more than happy to do that as well. But I think a strong marketing team behind you would be good.
Yeah, I mean, I've got nothing but love for the council comms team, because they do a lot for us. Again, in terms of accountability and responsibility, that's just as much us needing to make sure they get the right information to convey as it is them actually doing the conveyance for us.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Perks, Sandra, over to you now. I think you may be muted.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, yes.
It was the headphones come out. Okay, so I'm happy with option 3. I quite like option 3. I think when this came to scrutiny before, I mentioned that, you know, Barry, the size that it is, needs as many different art things as we can possibly have. And I sort of saw this as something like a mini chapter, you know, where you can have alternative films on that might not be the main stay. You know, you could have, you know, sort of live acts, you know, sort of comedy, different things like that happening at different times of the day, things for, you know, the various different parts of the population as well. Also, I'm quite happy to have a little coffee shop in there. I think if you go to the chapter, people actually stay there longer and go and browse and look at other things as well. So if you've got the space, I'm not saying, you know, a massive place, but if you've got that space where people can sit, have a coffee, meet some friends, they'll also wander around the library more. They'll wander around the art stuff that's going on more. You know, and it just gives a more comfortable feel. You go in, unfortunately, you go into the art gallery now. I personally, I don't always feel very comfortable walking in there. And that's because it's like going into a shop and there's nobody there. You don't always have that comfortable feeling. And I think this is the same. You want people to come in, feel comfortable, and that they'll return. Also, with the tabernacle opposite that's been sold to sort of a music entertainment business, I think this could be a really good focus point in Barry, that you've got the two on King Square. I will say we do need a museum somewhere, but I don't know whether Art Central is big enough for what the amount of history Barry has got. So I wouldn't necessarily have that there, but if we could have a museum somewhere else, and that's just me plugging on that at the moment. But yeah, I'm quite happy with option 3 and having a cafe there or a small little coffee bar there as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Sandra. Trevor, do you need to respond to that, or?
I'd love to if I could be really quick. I think one of the benefits of having a presence in terms of a coffee shop or whatever the case may be is there is somebody who is welcoming and who's looking after the space, and that's certainly drawn people in to the pavilion where we've tested it. Because we've had more people through the door, I can tell you the exposure that our artists in the Vale have had in the pavilion has been exceptional, and that's reflected in the sales of their own pieces. So for them to be making money off of that and the higher volume of folk that's in that setting, I think makes a difference for them, and that's again one of the aims of the strategy.
Okay, then at the moment, last but by no means least, Councillor Hodges, Nick.
Hello, everyone. This has been a long story. When I had the honour of opening the new library 15 years ago last month, Art Central, or the art space as it was then, was set up to become something quite innovative, exciting, and eye-catching. It's never been that, unfortunately. There is a lack of events, there's a lack of advertising, there's a lack of quality, and there's a lack of direction by the council, I'm afraid. It's interesting to hear Trevor say about a museum. It is something this town desperately needs, and it would be a great boost to the grey pound, the grey tourist pound, and also civic pride within our town. When other people were looking towards setting up a museum for the town, one of the things they looked towards was the Heritage Lottery Fund. And it was surprising, not only the amount of money that could be available with a good bid, but part of that bid would also pay for a curator for 3 years. That's the sort of exciting thing. When Heritage Lottery spend money, they want it to succeed, so they will make sure it's got every chance of succeeding. This is something we as a council need to approach. Heritage Lottery, Arts Council Wales. The amount of external grant that we get in for anything to do with heritage, art, culture is minimal. And to say that income from a cafe bar would help make culture in Barry more affordable or more easily attained is not enough. It's only in the last couple of years that we actually became a learning and culture committee. And it's some time since we've had a debate on culture or art. I'm pleased to hear that there's now some sort of standalone, separate funding stream within council for art and culture. That's long overdue. I do worry that we don't use this space at all well. In fact, when we opened it, it also had the outside, the outdoor space connecting from Art Central. Barely used, I think twice possibly in 15 years. It's not right. That was supposed to be a small staging area. It's not been used. It's not been thought of being used. It's not being put out to any groups or anyone to be used. People don't even know it's there. The marketing is poor. I do concern myself that the only magic bullet we seem to have to either promote the Arts Central space is a cafe bar. When we've had launch events there in the past, the glass of wine is there, a table can be set up. It might not be flash, but it suits the purpose. If you're looking to raise money, you must go externally. You must go and chase grant. And this is something that we are poor at in this council, chasing external grant. And I don't think we have the expertise or the knowledge to be able to do that. And that's something we must really, really, really investigate. So my last words are basically, 15 years ago, when I was Mayor of the Vale and I opened that new space, it was a great honour to do that. The first exhibition was actually put on effectively by myself. And I don't think there's been one as good as that since, for bringing people from further afield than that. We really, really, really must promote. But to do that, we must have something to promote. And I'm feeling that in the meantime, at least in the short or medium term, before we get grant in to promote this, we as a council must spend some money. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for that. Trevor, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the same history as you do with the building. 15 years ago, I was building snowmen in Eastern Ontario. It's only the last couple of years I've been getting involved with it. I think for me, one of the big priorities is building capacity within arts and culture, and in order to bring in some of that expertise and focus, because I do agree with you, there are pots of money out there that we need to access. It's getting the capacity to be able to do some of that work that I want to see happening, and in the short term, getting the marketing right and getting some more people into that space to see what it does have to offer. So that's what we're looking for on that. The other element of the cafe bar thing is the modernization of that space. So that's what that funding is set aside for. What do we need to invest in that space, indoor, outdoor, fabric of the building, to make it to modernize it in the sense that the facilities are available for the folk who want to use it.
Okay, thank you, Trevor. Right, we've been embarrassed I'm leaving the cabinet member well towards the last, but I can see we've got another speaker who's indicated, so perhaps we can bring Jane in on this.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Trevor. I'm just picking up on what Councillor Perks said, and it was a debate that we had, I can remember 18 months or so ago, on the same topic. And I think very often the problem with this is it comes across as Arts Central, the title, as being very elitist. And a lot of the people of Barry and the Vale think it's not for them. It's like saying it's going to the opera or going to the ballet. It's for some people, but not for others. And I think a lot of people look at it that way. I think we have to get over this and make it more user-friendly. I'm a non-Barry resident, and I must admit the only time I ever go there is if I have official duties, mailing, etc., because I don't feel as if there's anything there for me personally. And I think a lot of people in the Vale feel the same thing. We have to make it more user-friendly. We have to promote it. We have to bring in more that appeals to the general public, not just paintings and statues, etc. It is an arts gallery, yeah, but it should be even more. What about art classes, craft classes? All these things are bringing members of the public. Even a children's play corner where they can make craft and the sticky stuff. All right, it'll make a mess in the corner. It's easy to clear up. But bring art to the people, not expect the people to come in and look at other people's artwork. Thank you.
And that's exactly what we've been testing out for the last few months. And I think there's reference to it in there with the Summer Fun, for example, lots of different arts classes. When we had the COVID restrictions in the library, we ran a lot of events out of the gallery in Penarth. And dads and mums who had never been there previously brought in their kids and noticed what they had to offer and signed up for classes because they were able to do so. So yeah, that's something we need to continue to strengthen.
Okay, thank you. I can see I've got, as well as the cabinet member, I've got Councillor Rowlands who wants to come back in again. But can I just make a couple of comments myself? Like a few other members of this committee, or perhaps only one other member of the committee, thinking of Councillor Hodges, I've been around for a long time and have constantly had concerns regarding Art Central. You know, and I accept the council in the past hasn't been successful in trying to promote this as it should. As Councillor Charles pointed out, you know, this is a fantastic space. It's probably one of, I don't know whether the whole of Wales is appropriate to refer it to be referred to, but certainly it's probably one of the best potential art spaces, certainly to the west in South Wales, to the west of Cardiff. And unfortunately, we don't use it as we should. I think it's an interesting point that Councillor Norman made about perhaps by calling it Art Central, perhaps we are making it sound a little bit elitist, but whether a change of name is going to make a great deal of difference, I don't know. I certainly remember going back many years ago, the issue of a cafe facility in there was mentioned. I don't think we were as sophisticated in those days. I think we just called it a cafe, not a cafe bar. But certainly that was mentioned, and I don't think it received great support then. I vaguely seem to remember that we were talking about using something like about 30% of the space, which would have been a shame. But and I agree with Nick, with Councillor Hodges, that I don't see necessarily having this facility is going to solve all the problems. It's perhaps not enough money is available rather than not enough money is used, because obviously we are, as a council, we're always strapped for cash. I agree with what's been said, that perhaps we have never promoted this as well as we should. And yes, very often you don't hear anything about what's going on, and there have been some fantastic exhibitions in the past. We really need to do something. It's interesting that we seem to be, to some extent, ignoring what else has been mentioned as reward, because that seems to be successful. It's this one we need to concentrate on and to make some progress. I've got, as I say, I can see Councillor Hodges and Councillor Norman still have their hands up. Perhaps, as we refer to them, perhaps those are legacy hands. I don't know. Perhaps, yeah. Perhaps I can ask Councillor Rowlands, do you wish to add something new or to make any proposals before we bring the cabinet member in on this?
Yeah, so listening to obviously Councillor Hodges and Councillor Norman and Councillor Perks and Councillor Thomas, I think there's a common theme that seems to be going through all this, and one of them is obviously marketing and external funding and that type of stuff. So I'll keep it quite brief. I would like to recommend to Cabinet that they have a proper marketing strategy, and I mean a meaningful one, for one, I would also like them to look at external funding opportunities, as Councillor Hodges said, as number 2. And also, as Councillor Norman said, maybe a rebranding exercise could sort of happen as well, just to include everyone. I think with those 3, I think we could come up with a good plan rather than just going for the safe bet of having a cafe bar as a backball. So I would like to propose those 3 recommendations, and if anyone needs me to clarify, I'm more than happy to, or if anyone has any amendments.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, perhaps at this point it's a good idea to let the to have comments from the cabinet member, and then if you perhaps want to think, Councillor Rowlands, as to how that's going to be phrased, depending on what is said, we can come back to you later. So, cabinet member.
Thank you, Chair. I've taken lots of notes. It's been a really interesting conversation, and in a lot of ways it mirrors the previous conversations that we've had on this topic. Funding for arts, actually, the whole arts agenda within the council is difficult because, when you're dealing with the impact of austerity and repeated budget cuts over many years, then actually you get used to being in a cycle of managed decline. And if you've got a non-statutory service, then it tends to go into a coping mode because there isn't the funding internally. And it's an interesting one because if we look at the whole experience that we've had in the Pier Pavilion, I mean, I've said repeatedly, it isn't something that we would have planned to do in the middle of a pandemic. But knowing that closure was not an option for that iconic building, we put together plans and we've learned a huge amount from it. And if you're going to be ambitious and innovative, then there's scope for the future. I've heard, Ian very rightly said, we shouldn't necessarily aim for cost neutral. Well, actually, I've got a bit of a query there because we're in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to be talking about the budget, and we're going to be talking about how we fund social care and education are the 2 bigger ones, and then everything else tends to fit in around it. And so this is a discussion. If we say, well, if we're not aiming for cost neutral, what are we aiming for? And we've got a thing about, well, we should market it. Well, actually, do we have relevant content? What will marketing do if we haven't got the model right? So when you actually look at it, I mean, we have found in operating the pavilion a model that appears to work. We've got a model that appears to provide a sustainable base for such a venture, which you can always add grant applications on top of. And therein lies another thing, because if you look at the budget, if you look at the cost pressures, one of the things in there is actually a team very similar to the one that we had in Creative Rural Communities, which is lost through European funding issues, that would actually be performing that role and helping us to access grants, helping us to build capacity within our communities and take things forward. So we can do that. And it's said we have to look at how do we find resources to do it? How do we find seed funding to do it? And those are all the questions that we have. Do we have the capacity? Do we have the resources? Through our experience, we know we have the skills. And as I said, we know that we've got a viable and sustainable model that we can build on. We know as well that we've got a hugely successful social enterprise in Big Fresh that provides sustainability to that sort of model. And I would go further. We're talking about the Penarth Pavilion, we're talking about the potential for Art Central. Well, actually, if you're looking at a multi-purpose arts education co-working space venue, then I actually think that we should explore the establishment of a similar facility in a rural Vale, because we don't have something down there, and I would like to be looking at something there as well, so that we've actually got something right across the Vale, which is sustainable and provides that service for all our residents. So as I said, I can't subscribe to something which actually is an unquantifiable money pit when we're looking at our current budget situation of, you know, when we first looked at it, what, £27 million cost pressures. So, you know, we have to be looking at how we manage to be sustainable going forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I can appreciate where you're coming from as far as the issue of cross pressures are concerned. I think we've and can I just say we obviously need to give effective contributions to everything, but I know we've got the next item coming up where which is the Welsh language promotion strategy, which is presented by Tom Bowring, who has sent a message saying he's been working in the civic offices. He's having to leave because it's about to be locked up. So he's going to be presenting this on his way to the railway station, which is going to probably get some very strange looks from members of the public, I should think. But so we need to bear in mind timescales. But I've got two more indicated to speak, both spoken before, but happy to take them. Sandra. You're having problems with your sound again?
No, we still can't hear you.
Doesn't matter. It's okay.
Oh yeah, no, we can.
Oh, okay. So, okay, sorry. All I wanted to say is that what I want to see an art space that is relevant to all residents within Barry and you know, and Vale visitors outside. I want everyone to feel comfortable going into that space. So, you know, you have to think about the art that we want to put on there as well, not just you know, sort of more highbrow art and stuff like that, but art that actually attracts everybody into that space, so it belongs to everybody. And I think by having option number 3, and I know people say we don't want the coffee space, it gets people through that door. Yes, we can go in there for a coffee, you know, and then we can have a look at something else. And I know people might not like that idea, but I just think let's try things. Let's try something different, because what we've got at the moment isn't working. If we're only getting 12,500 people through that door, there's something that isn't working in that space. And what do we need to do to change that? And it isn't just marketing, it's other stuff that we need. And if that is a wide range of arts that go on there, let's try that. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much, Chair, for letting me speak again.
Okay, thank you for that. Nick?
Yeah, I understand totally the pressure on budgets and everything like that. It's just that until now, it seems that there's been very little in the way of any budget for art and culture. My question really is, and this is a genuine question, I've been reading recently about the wonderful initiatives in Penarth Library with the all the arts equipment and everything that's going to be going in there. And it's been paid for, I understand, it said in the article, by 106 money. Now, my question is there any 106 art money available in Barry? Because after all, we've had thousands of houses built here in the last few years. And rather than spending it on strange art on the road that no one will see, can we actually spend it on something specific and concentrated, like whatever Art Central will become?
I think that's an interesting and very good point. Yes. If I can just go back to Councillor Rowland, you made a proposal. I don't know whether you've refined that at all.
No, my proposal still stands, though Councillor Hodges makes a good point, actually. Section 106 money, and, if it's being used in Penarth for this type of stuff, why can't it be used in Barry? That's my recommendation. If anyone would like to second it, by all means they can. If they don't, I would just like it put into the comments to Cabinet, basically, that we need a strategy for marketing. We need to do external sort of grants and stuff like that. And it just, and we need to have a rebrand of Art Central, as Councillor Norman said, because it needs to be inclusive, not, exclusive.
Okay, thank you. Nick, are you wanting to say something, or is it just a lingering hand?
Sorry, it was a lingering hand, but seeing I actually put forward most of those ideas and proposals, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just check, is that one long recommendation, or are those 3 separate recommendations?
I would think they're one recommendation with 3 points.
Okay.
Correct, Chair, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I'm concerned that we're being asked to put forward a recommendation that's unfunded and not thought through in terms of cost pressures. The option 3 is asking for a similar situation to what's been going on at the Pier Pavilion. And that has been funded and is doing most of what, or in fact, all of what Councillor Rowlands is putting forward as a motion. And I fail to see how the motion, his recommendation rather, is a benefit to this committee, or a benefit to the proposal that's already there as option 3. Apart from the fact that it is unfunded and asking for more money to be put in without, particularly when we're looking at council tax levels in the next few weeks. And I'm wondering, is this an indication that his group is going to be supporting council tax rises over and above what's necessary?
Nothing to do with that, Councillor Thomas, at all. It's about exploring. So let's have a look about exploring it.
I'm sorry, this isn't. You're supposed to go through the chair, not argue back.
I think I would agree. I can see, Councillor, where Councillor Thomas is coming from, but we have a situation now. We have a proposal. We have a seconder. I'm going to now move this, and we'll take a vote on it. Unless anyone, so I'm assuming, Councillor Thomas, you would be opposing the motion that's been put forward by Councillor Rowlands and seconded by Councillor Hodges.
In that it's unfunded, I'm afraid I have to. It would be irresponsible not to. I would, however, support option 3 in the officer's report.
Right. Councillor Hodges, do you want to add anything? You see your hand is still there.
Yeah, I did put it down, but I put it back up again with the question of whatever is being proposed being unfunded. Who's funding the cafe?
The cafe at Big Fresh. The beauty of this model is it pays for itself.
Yeah, but the initial setup costs are Big Fresh, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of this council. So the council's funding that. How much?
No, Big Fresh is funding it. So as part of their, they created a reserve for commercial expansion based on their success in the past year. So that funding would be used.
And how big will it be?
How big will the cafe be, or how big will the fund?
Well, how big will the cafe be? How much of the art space will it take up?
We haven't done any of that preliminary work yet. It was dependent on what happens with the options. I mean, just to be clear, I mean, we aren't looking at turning the whole space into a restaurant or anything like that. That's not the scale that we're looking at doing. It's certainly not the scale that we have at the Pavilion, and it would be a smaller provision than what we have at the Pavilion, because the Pavilion has a kitchen and the Art Central does not, and we wouldn't be looking in at putting in ovens and that kind of thing.
Okay, well, I'm happy now to take this to a vote. Can we, Catherine, can we proceed to take a roll call of members?
Yes, of course. So Councillor Kemp, are you for or against Councillor Rowlands' recommendation to refer to Cabinet?
For.
I believe Councillor Birch has left the meeting, but just to double check.
She has, I think, yes.
Okay. Councillor Griffiths, are you still with us?
No, he seems to have left the building as well. Or
Okay.
certainly the meeting.
Councillor Hodges, you seconded it.
Yes, I have. For.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jarvie, are you still with us? Councillor Jarvie? I can see his name's there. Right, if we come back to Councillor Jarvie, Councillor Norman.
Abstain.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Against.
Councillor Perks.
Against.
Councillor Rowlands.
I'll be in for my recommendation.
And Councillor Thomas.
Against.
So by my measuring, Chair, I've got 3 for and 3 against.
Excuse me, Councillor Jarvie here. I couldn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have come back to you.
I couldn't get back online, so I'm against that one.
You're against.
Yeah.
I do apologise for turning to you myself.
Yeah. Can I just ask, because this is not an education matter, are the those members?
No, it's only education specific matters that are co-opted members can vote on.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have got a count of 4 against and 3 for.
That motion is lost.
So the recommendation's lost.
Can I move officers' recommendations now with a favouring option 3?
I'll second that.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Okay, sorry, I'm just writing everything down.
Councillor Rowlands, you've raised your hand.
Just to put on record that I'm not in favour of option 3 at all. Just to put that on record.
Okay.
Would you like this to go to a vote as well, Chair? Or
I think as certainly as Councillor Rowlands says he's against, I think we need to take a vote.
Okie doke. So I'll go through it again. Councillor Kemp.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Birch is no longer with us. Councillor Griffiths, I understand, has also left. Councillor Hodges.
I'm against this. You will need to pay for art somehow. This isn't the answer.
Okay. Councillor Jarvie.
I'm not sure what the vote is for. What's the motion, Madam? We're voting for or against. What is it?
This is Councillor Thomas moved the officer's recommendation for the preferred option of option 3.
Right, I'm for then.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas, just to confirm I'm correct on that.
Oops.
Thank you. Councillor Norman.
For.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Perks.
For.
Councillor Rowlands, you've already expressed that you are against.
Just to confirm, against.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Thomas.
My motion for.
Yes, sorry. So 5 in favour of the motion and 3 against. The recommendation is carried.
Okay, thank you all very much. If we move on to the next agenda item 7. Is Tom with us?
Can I check if you can hear me okay, Chair?
I can, so I assume if I can, all other members can.
Absolutely.
Excellent, thank you very much, and apologies for the slightly unorthodox way that I'm presenting this it's true mobile working in action. So thank you to Trevor for making that possible for us. I'm joined this evening by Di Thomas, who's on your screen as well. Di has been, as you will recall, supporting the development of the Welsh language promotion strategy. The reason for bringing it back to your committee this evening, Chair, is in part of the pre-decision scrutiny process. So we're bringing it here this evening and also to Corporate Performance and Resources next Thursday evening as well. You'll remember that before Christmas we brought a draft assessment and draft strategy to this committee, and that was part of the formal consultation process. So the report that you've got on your agenda this evening has got a consultation report at Appendix A, and also an updated assessment of the existing strategy in Appendix B. We've taken the opportunity that through the consultation there's been some minor refinements to the assessment of the existing strategy, but that's largely remained unchanged from when you saw it previously. Appendix C is the proposed strategy for the next 5 years to promote the Welsh language. And again, there have only been minor revisions to that strategy following the consultation process. But what we thought would be useful to concentrate on this evening, in addition to any member queries on those documents, is Appendix A and Appendix D. So Appendix A is the consultation report. That shows the public survey responses that we received. There were 136 of those, Chair. It was roughly 50-50 in terms of people's support for the aims of the strategy. However, the majority of people who were against the strategy did so because they didn't think that we should have this strategy, which members will recall is a statutory duty for the organisation. So we've taken on board the feedback that we've received. We've also run a workshop session with Forum Iaith, which is the Welsh language forum in the Vale of Glamorgan of our partner organisations. So they've fed into this process, and we've also brought this to your committee and Corporate Performance and Resources. So that's the consultation report at Appendix A. As I say, it's led to minor revisions to the assessment of the current strategy and also to the proposed strategy itself. But as we talked about at the previous committee, it's really the action plan which brings this piece of work to life and sets out the commitments that we're going to make over the coming 5 years. So with your permission, Chair, I'll hand over to Di Thomas to walk you and the committee through at a high level the contents of that action plan.
Okay, thank you very much. Over to you, Di.
Good evening, and diolch yn fawr. Thank you for the invitation to come back to speak about the promotion strategy and action plan again. As Thomas said, the main difference this time around, the significant document is now the action plan. Going back to when it was presented to you previously, a number of comments were made about wanting to hear the local voice reflected in the document. The action plan is very much that local voice. It's a combination of suggestions that came from bringing it to the 2 scrutiny committees at the end of last year, public consultation comments, some of the forum members' comments, and also building on what was in the previous strategy. You may recall that the previous action plan had 4 themes and 45 actions between those 4 themes. We've slimmed that down, but it's not less of a plan in that sense. It's simply more focused. There are now the 3 themes, as we mentioned, into the Welsh Government's Cymraeg 2050 strategy, and we've combined a number of the actions and removed some of the duplication that seemed to be there, and also put in a few new focused ones that we reflect what had come out of the consultation. As you'll see from the impact assessment document as well, one of the things that we made sure was included in the action plan were more links to the corporate plan, more actions around targets to do with the socio-economic duty, making sure that Welsh was seen as an employment skill. So we've really tried to focus in and make it a much more practical document. 5 years ago, it was the first one that had ever been done. It was very aspirational. 5 years on from that, lessons have been learned, things have moved on, and this current document now, under the 3 themes for Cymraeg 2050, has been sort of fine-tuned. One of the new columns completely in this action plan compared with the previous version is every single action in this action plan is now linked to your corporate objectives, in the wellbeing objectives. And obviously this evening a number of issues have cropped up around discussions around funding. One of the brand new actions in there is something that only recently came to light, where there's a possibility of funding support for Welsh in the workplace training via the National Centre for Learning Welsh. That's under action 1.5 in the current action plan. One of the things that came up last time also that was commented, I believe, by one of the councillors, was the concern that Welsh sometimes can be seen or perceived to be an exclusive issue, and that there would needed to be greater links with multiculturalism and bringing in different aspects along those lines. So a number of the actions in both section 1 and section 2 now relate to multi-language use as well, and make promoting Welsh to a wider community and from different backgrounds, bringing in some of those issues. And also under section 3, which is the 3rd theme around creating the right infrastructure, there's an awful lot of focus now on Welsh as a skill, linking to your corporate objective on employment, and just making sure that more adults are learning. One of the things that came out from the partnership consultation and workshop that we had was that it's the WESP that the council has, the Welsh and Education Strategic Plan, that should focus on the statutory age range, and that there's an opportunity in this document to focus more on young adults, adults who are retraining into the workforce. So that's all been reflected in the actions as well. I'm happy to focus in on anything else, but I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have, because obviously the action plan's a new document for you, whereas the others are ones that were brought to you before. As I said, it's much more focused and targeted, hopefully, I believe anyway, than the previous version is now, based on the consultation period that was held between November and the beginning of January. So yeah, if any of you have any questions, I'm sure, well, I'll do my best to answer them this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, yeah, can I say I agree that it seems to be a more focused document, which I think is important, because sometimes these things can take on a life of their own, and but this one seems to be, to the point, and hopefully will be successful. Are there any members who wish to ask questions? No. Okay, which must mean everyone is very supportive of it and think it's great. I can hear that Tom is still walking.
I am, Chair. Thank you very much. It was just to add a big thank you to Di for his support and expertise on this piece of work for us. We, as I say, will take this to Corporate Performance and Resources Committee next week, and they're on to Cabinet on the 28th of February. We'll then start work on this from the 1st of April, and as always, your committee will receive the annual Welsh Language Monitoring Report. The version that will come to you this summer will be on the existing strategy, so it'll be then in 2023 that we'll deliver against the first year. And we have taken on board the comments of the committees about lived experience and case studies, and we'll make sure that those are reflected in the forthcoming Welsh Language Annual Monitoring Report as well. So there'll be some immediate progress being made.
Okay, thank you. Well, I hope you're not getting too many strange looks from members of the public.
No more so than usual.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I just to thank Di Thomas, no relation, for his report. It is a comprehensive report, and I just like to move that we note.
Second.
Just that we note the report, or we support the we support it.
We support it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I'll second that. I assume all members are happy with that. No signs of dissension. Okay, thank you very much. Well, thank you to both of you. Thank you to both, well, particularly Di Thomas for sitting through such a long meeting, and thank you for all your efforts, and thank you for Tom for participating under very difficult circumstances.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Okay, we come to agenda item 8. Which is a summary, which is again the report, a report from the Director of Learning and Skills, summary of work carried out to deliver the Welsh Government period dignity grants in the light of COVID-19. So, Mark.
Hello, thank you. I've got no sound effects like Tom, and I'm conscious it's been a very long evening, so I'll try and be as quick as I can. This is a brief information report to inform members about the work carried out in relation to the period poverty, period dignity grants. The report was developed in response to work being undertaken by the Learning and Skills Task Group, looking at the cost of the school day, and also links to previous discussions this committee has had. So very briefly, the report outlines how the Vale of Glamorgan Council has been supporting families to ensure period dignity for both women and girls. Generally, it was aimed at low-income households throughout the pandemic. It reflects a wide range of actions and activities that we undertook, but mainly by us officers, to ensure that the grant was fully utilised and focused on ensuring that period products were made available free of charge, accessible, and in the most practical and dignified way possible. The Task and Finish group was not just about the financial cost of the provision, but also highlighted the benefits of this investment in terms of promoting dignity, equality, health and well-being of the pupils, especially the impact on education and welfare of those pupils who were living in low-income families. I'd just like to reiterate, it's not just about low-income families, it is about all girls, but we were particularly focusing on low income for obvious reasons, especially with the pandemic. Originally, the grant was in 2 formats. One was Dignity in Schools grant, and the other one was called a Period Dignity in Communities grant. They have now been merged. What I'll do, even though this report is old, I'll try at the end just to give a few little bits about how things have changed and bring it up to date. The school grant was allowing for additional purchase. Some of the major changes that we saw when the grants were merged was to see that the school grant was allowing the purchase of additional spare clothing in case of accidents and such like. So it wasn't just about buying specific products. One of the grant conditions was around utilising a minimum of 50% of the total grant towards eco-friendly period products. This could encompass both reusable products and plastic-free. Part of what we were asked to do was to raise awareness of the purpose of the grant and widen the free distribution of eco products. So one of our plans as officers, because we had a number of these just before lockdown, was to sort of look at running a number of indoor promotional events utilising council buildings and schools. This would have allowed a number of the suppliers we'd linked in with, contacted, to sort of market their products and make it easier for schools to know what was available. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. And likewise, we'd linked in with public health and school nursing with the intention that they would be able to do workshops within schools as well. Clearly, with the lockdown response, we were asked to be a little bit more flexible. Welsh Government gave us permission to look at these things slightly different. So our rethink. So what I'm going to do is just scoot through some of those things that we did instead. When we introduced what we call a voucher project, which basically was allowing us to issue each of those girls on free school meals an actual £15 voucher. We had to do some negotiation with local supermarkets, which meant they could be redeemed for products within those stores. We managed to target about 595 in the first trawl, but by the second trawl we'd managed to gather up to over 900 girls to ensure that they were given vouchers. We linked in with a number of third sector and existing partners, things like food banks, community hubs, family centres. Interesting take up from those was not as great as we would have envisaged. We have continued to try and link with them on over things like that. We also run a variety of various eco-friendly and recyclable items out in bags to a variety of different targeted groups. So things like our 15+ team, youth wellbeing services, housing partners, some of our looked after children. And what we managed to do was distribute those through the people they were already working with. We also linked in with a variety of hostels with a particular focus on those with women and young girls, the places like Clamai Housing and other homeless accommodations. We launched a period dignity website, so it would allow people who were looking for products to actually come to us directly. During the October period of that year, we did a big promotional with primary and secondary schools where we kept reminding them the funds that were available, what they could purchase, how they could how we could help distribute those products to them. All these schools were informed, whilst they remained closed, how to what we asked them to do was to send a link to our web pages and an actual email address that would allow pupils, parents to contact us directly and ask for period products to be delivered free of charge. And we managed to get about 80 different families linked into that, where we've done generally deliveries just before every major holiday to ensure that those pupils would have products at home. We had some big take up from some of the schools, particularly St. Cyrus and Lantwit. We had additional contact with some of the primaries who were doing direct deliveries to some of their families to support them. So with a particular focus on Landock, St. Iltyd's and Cogan, who actually requested quite a lot of items. And then lots of the other primaries I note within the report also requested stock for the school. A big thank you, I have to say, to the Vale Youth Service. They were very actively involved and did quite a lot of work to support me in doing a number of these different things. They sort of developed a wellness project where they distributed products out through a variety of the projects they're actively engaged with, whether that was the youth offending service, specific schools, those not in school, through the sort of homeless prevention team that they run. They managed to contact a number of young people through that. And they also did some pop-up sessions out in the community in a variety of areas. The numbers weren't huge, but they were certainly targeted and was really went down well. The youth service also did some work with Lantwit Youth Council, where they helped provide products that they were then able to distribute in the local area. Just to say, all this work is continuing. Clearly, this year's report will highlight all the different things we've done. However, we have also delivered 2 awareness raising sessions to schools about the guidance and what they can order stock-wise, how things work, and we have seen a significant increase in the schools buying products, which is one of the things we wanted to do. That hadn't been quite as good as we'd hoped it would be. So we think we turned a slight corner there. We have responded to a national consultation and we await our first Welsh Government national meeting to explore Welsh Government's new development plan on period dignity. And hopefully we will be able to explore good ideas from other areas. We think that Welsh Government were a bit preoccupied, say, with the pandemic, and therefore, as a group, this never came together as quickly as we would have liked. We continue to support a lot of outlets and develop links for distribution. We keep finding different organisations very keen to be part of this. One big change midway through this year was a flexibility given to us by Welsh Government to employ somebody to deliver workshops in schools. We did try numerous different ways to try and find someone to actually carry this this work out for us, but we were unsuccessful. However, we have now linked with an organisation called City of Seas. This is a charity who deliver training for staff on period dignity with a tilt towards what we would say eco-friendly, plastic-free products. And we're hoping that will start probably in March for us. Chair, I think that's about the sum total of my report. I don't know if there's any questions.
Well, thank you for that. That was a very comprehensive run through in a very quick time. It is interesting to really read what is being done, and I was quite interested to see the work of the youth service in particular, and I think a good idea of the pop-up sessions.
Yes, really good. Utilising the bus, it's all outdoors, and it was those who were then passing, people they could engage in workshops. There's so much more you could put in a report like that, really.
Yeah, but no, it's very good to see some of that, because it is involved, or getting this out to people who possibly wouldn't become involved in other circumstances. So yeah, I welcome that, and it'd be good to see it taken on, further sessions around the Vale. So yeah, I think that was excellent. Sandra.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't really got a question as such, because Mark's actually answered the question. I was going to ask if it was still going to continue, and you've answered that already, which is fantastic news. But I suppose what I want to say is thank you to Mark and the team and the other teams involved in ensuring that during the pandemic that people didn't still had period dignity, and that they had the products that they needed and things like that. I think the voucher system was a huge success. I think that was really marvellous, and just sort of getting out there into schools or providing those products is really a sort of essential, and I think it just shows sort of that what the Vale is capable of. It's really magnificent. And I think also what we might not have mentioned is that there was a little bit of money for new toilets as well. Yeah, and I think one of the primary schools, the toilets that they had for older girls wasn't really suitable really for anybody who was sort of had reached a period age. So to have that redone and to go back and see what it was like was excellent. It just sort of really important that there is dignity when women and girls are having their period as well. So I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm glad the good work's carrying on.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment from. I'm really pleased with the work that's ongoing, and from a school perspective. But I'm actually involved in the food pod in Penarth. That has had supplies, and what I can say there is that the people that come along to the pod for support, it's not just food that is a challenge. It's actually also things like stuff to wash clothes and that sort of thing, but our very well stocked hygiene shelf as a result of support from this initiative is always very welcome, and it's quite interesting to see the reaction of people that call for support to realise that the range of products that we do have available, and obviously will help people's very stretched pockets to cope a little bit longer.
Okay, thank you. Jane?
Just following up on that, congratulations, Mark. And I know how hard the Lantern Youth Council worked getting these products out. But I don't know if people are aware, but Morrison's actually have a scheme running, as well as supplying food. You can buy food to put to the food banks. They have free period poverty sanitary products available. If you go to the counter and ask for a package for Sandy, they will give young girls and women free sanitary products. I don't know how many people know this, but it is something worth passing around. If ever any young person or older person is out and about and needs these products, if they go to Morrison's and ask for a parcel for Sandy, they will be given free products, no question, and they're plain wrapped.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting, and yeah, I think that's a very good idea. So, can I, well, perhaps just move that, as well as noting the report, that we again, I think you've probably done before on these kind of things, that we thank everyone involved for the very hard work and for the innovative ideas that have been shown in this. So thank you very much, and I'm sure members would support that.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you all very much. Okay, well, that's I've got no items items under agenda item 9. There are no part 2 items. That brings us to the end of the meeting. So I'm thanking everyone for their attendance and contributions, and wish you all a good evening. Thank you very much.
Good night all.
Good night. Good night, all.
Thanks, everyone.
Night all. Night.